The envelope on Adrian Cole's kitchen table held either salvation or damnation. He just couldn't tell which yet. $20,000. Cash. From a woman he'd met exactly once who somehow knew his daughter's medical bills down to the last cent. The note inside was worse than the money. This is just the beginning. I need something from you. Meet me tomorrow. 8 p.m. Meridian Hotel. Penthouse suite. Come alone. E.D. Adrian's hands shook as he reread it for the 10th time that night, Lily's labored breathing audible through the thin apartment walls. 20,000 would cover maybe 2 months of treatment. After that? He didn't want to think about after that. But this woman, this Evelyn Drake, she clearly wanted something, and people like her didn't give money away for free. If you want to see how far desperation can push a good man, stay with me until the end. Drop a like and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Adrian Cole had learned to measure time in hospital visits. 3 times a week for the past 8 months, he'd take Lily to Children's Memorial for her treatments. Tuesday mornings, Thursday afternoons, Saturday whenever they could fit them in. The receptionists knew their names now. The nurses kept a stash of the strawberry lollipops Lily liked. Even the parking attendant had stopped charging him the full rate, which was probably against policy but felt like the only kindness the universe was willing to spare. Tonight was Monday, though. Monday meant he didn't have to watch his 7-year-old daughter try to be brave while needles went into her too small arms. Monday meant microwaved mac and cheese at their cramped apartment, Lily's favorite cartoon, and pretending everything was fine. "Dad, you're burning it." Adrian jerked back to reality, yanking the pot off the stove. The pasta had stuck to the bottom, forming a crusty orange mass that definitely wasn't going to win any parenting awards. "It's got character," he said, scraping what he could salvage onto 2 plates. Lily giggled, and the sound made everything worth it. She was curled up on their second-hand couch, wrapped in the yellow blanket his mother had crocheted before she passed. Too thin. Always too thin now, no matter how much he tried to get her to eat. "Character means burned," she said knowingly. "Character means I'm an artist." "You're a driver, Dad." "A driving artist." He carried the plates over, settling beside her. The couch springs protested. Everything in this place protested. The landlord kept promising to fix things, but Adrian had learned not to hold his breath. "How are you feeling today, Lils?" She shrugged, that tiny gesture that told him more than words ever could. Not great. Not terrible. Somewhere in the exhausted middle. "Dr. Patterson says my numbers are stable," she offered. Stable, the word doctors used when they couldn't say better. "That's good," Adrian said, keeping his voice light. "Stable is good." They ate in comfortable silence, the TV playing some show about talking dogs Lily loved. Adrian wasn't really watching. He was calculating, the way he always did now. Rent was due in 12 days. The hospital bill from last month was already past due. He'd been dodging calls from the billing department for a week. His rideshare earnings had been down because he'd been taking morning shifts instead of the profitable late nights, needing to be home when Lily got back from school. Mrs. Chen from 3B watched her sometimes, but Adrian hated asking, hated being that father who needed help. Hated all of it. The envelope caught his eye from the kitchen table. He'd found it slipped under their door when they got home, his name written in elegant script across the front. No return address, no explanation. Just that note, and more cash than he'd seen in one place since before Jenny died. "Is that for me?" Lily asked, noticing where he was looking. "No, baby. Grown-up stuff." "Is it bad?" She'd gotten good at reading his moods, too good. 7-year-olds shouldn't have to be that perceptive. "I don't know yet," he said honestly. After Lily went to bed, her room was really just a partitioned corner of the studio, but she'd decorated it with drawings and sticker stars. Adrian sat at the table and stared at the envelope again. He'd already counted the money twice. 200 $100 bills, crisp and new, still in their bank band. The note had come with a business card. Heavy stock, embossed lettering, Evelyn Drake, CEO, Drake Consolidated. Adrian had looked her up on his phone while Lily watched her show. The search results were extensive and intimidating. Forbes lists. Merger announcements. Photos of a woman who looked like she'd been carved from ice and ambition. Dark hair always perfectly styled, wearing suits that probably cost more than Adrian's car. Drake Consolidated owned half the commercial real estate in the city and had fingers in everything from tech startups to shipping logistics. Evelyn Drake herself was described variously as a business visionary, a ruthless negotiator, and, in one particularly catty profile, the woman who makes grown men cry in boardrooms. She was 36, never married, no public relationships. Her father had founded the company, but she'd tripled its value in the 8 years since taking over. There were rumors of hostile takeovers, of competitors who'd underestimated her once and never made that mistake again. And somehow, she knew about Lily. That was the part that had kept Adrian awake last night, staring at the ceiling while trying to figure out the angle. He'd never met Evelyn Drake before 3 days ago, and that had been pure chance. Or so he'd thought. It was a Thursday night. He'd picked up a ride request from the Meridian Hotel, the kind of place where Adrian had to show ID just to enter the parking garage. The passenger was listed as E. Drake, 5-star rating, headed to an address in the financial district. She'd been standing under the hotel awning when he pulled up, phone pressed to her ear, heels clicking as she paced. Even from the car, Adrian could tell she was the kind of woman who expected the world to rearrange itself for her convenience. "You'll have the revised contracts by morning, Marcus, or you'll have a lawsuit. Those are your options." She'd ended the call with a swipe and climbed into the back seat without a word of greeting. Adrian knew the type. He'd driven hundreds of them. People who saw drivers as furniture, who took calls and held meetings in the back seat like he wasn't even there. It didn't bother him anymore. He preferred invisible. "Financial district," he confirmed, pulling into traffic. "Archer and Fifth," she'd corrected, her voice cool. "The tower with the red logo." "Yes, ma'am." He'd caught her gaze in the rearview mirror, dark eyes, assessing. Then she'd looked away, already typing something on her phone. The ride had been uneventful until they hit traffic near the bridge. Road construction, lanes merging, the usual nightmare. Adrian had taken a side route to avoid the worst of it, years of city driving giving him an edge over the GPS. "You know the streets well," she'd observed. 12 years driving," Adrian said. You learn the shortcuts." "And before that?" It was an odd question, personal in a way passengers usually weren't, but traffic was crawling, and she seemed genuinely curious rather than just making conversation. "Construction management," Adrian said. "Had my own small firm for a while." "What happened?" "Life." He didn't elaborate. Didn't mention Jenny's cancer, the medical bills that ate through their savings, the business he'd had to dissolve to become his wife's full-time caretaker. Didn't mention how he'd thought the worst was over when Jenny died, only to have Lily get sick 6 months later. That wasn't something you shared with strangers. But Evelyn Drake had studied him in the mirror with those dark eyes, and Adrian had the uncomfortable feeling she'd heard everything he hadn't said. "Life tends to happen," she'd agreed quietly. They'd made it to her building with 5 minutes to spare. She'd paid through the app, added a generous tip, and Adrian had thought that was the end of it. Another passenger, another night. Except 2 days later, the envelope appeared. Now Adrian turned the business card over in his hands. The back was blank except for a handwritten time, 8 p.m. Tomorrow. The Meridian Hotel, penthouse suite. Every instinct told him this was wrong. You didn't take money from strangers. You didn't walk into situations you didn't understand. You especially didn't get involved with billionaire CEOs who somehow knew your business. But $20,000 would buy time. And time was the one thing Lily needed that Adrian couldn't earn driving 16 hours a day. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "The offer expires tomorrow night. Don't overthink it." Adrian's jaw clenched. How the hell did she get his number? Another buzz. A photo this time. It took him a moment to recognize it. Lily's medical chart, somehow photographed from what looked like a doctor's office. Her diagnosis. Her treatment plan. Her deteriorating blood counts from last week's test. His hands went cold. A third text. "I can help her. Let me." Adrian was dialing before he could think better of it. She answered on the first ring. "Mr. Cole, I wondered if you'd call. How did you get that photo?" His voice came out harder than he'd intended. "I have excellent researchers. That's a violation of privacy laws, of medical confidentiality. You could report me, yes, Or you could meet me tomorrow and hear what I'm offering. Her tone didn't change, still that same cool professionalism. I'm not your enemy, Adrian. May I call you Adrian? You can explain how you know my daughter is sick. A pause. I make it my business to understand situations fully before I act. When I met you 3 days ago, I recognized something. A work ethic, an intelligence, a desperation that's carefully controlled. I was curious, so I looked into your circumstances. That's not an answer. It's the only one you'll get tonight. He heard her shift, maybe settling back in a chair. Tomorrow, 8 p.m. I'm offering you a way to help Lily, a legitimate way that benefits us both. All I'm asking is that you hear me out. Why me? Because you're exactly what I need, and I'm exactly what you need, whether you want to admit it or not. Another pause. I'll see you tomorrow, Adrian. Don't be late. She hung up. Adrian sat in the dark apartment, phone still pressed to his ear, listening to the silence. From Lily's corner came the soft sound of her breathing, slightly labored the way it always was now. The refrigerator hummed. A siren wailed somewhere in the distance. $20,000 sat on the table. Tomorrow night, he'd find out what it would cost. The Meridian Hotel made Adrian feel like an imposter just walking through the doors. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers. A doorman in a uniform nicer than anything Adrian owned. The lobby smelled like expensive flowers and money, and every surface gleamed like it was polished hourly. Adrian had worn his best shirt, the blue one that didn't have any stains, paired with the khakis he saved for Lily's school conferences. He'd even shined his shoes, though they were still obviously cheap. Looking at the other guests moving through the lobby, designer suits, jewelry that probably cost more than his car, he knew he didn't belong. The elevator to the penthouse required a special key card. The concierge had given him one with a polite smile that didn't quite hide her curiosity. Adrian rode up alone, watching the floor numbers climb. His reflection in the polished doors looked tired, scared. The elevator opened directly into a private foyer. Only one door, dark wood with a brass knocker. It opened before Adrian could use it. Evelyn Drake stood in the doorway, and Adrian's first thought was that photos didn't do her justice. She was taller than he'd expected, eye level with him even in flat shoes. Her dark hair was down tonight, falling past her shoulders in waves that looked effortlessly perfect. She wore black slacks and a silk blouse, simple but clearly expensive. No jewelry except small diamond studs. Adrian, you came. I don't think I had much choice. Her mouth curved slightly. There's always a choice. Come in. The penthouse was obscene. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, furniture that belonged in magazines, art on the walls that might have been originals, a full bar in one corner, a grand piano in another. The space was easily bigger than Adrian's entire apartment building. Can I offer you a drink? Evelyn asked, moving to the bar. Answers would be better. Straight to business. I like that. She poured herself something amber from a crystal decanter. Sit, please. This conversation works better if you're not hovering. Adrian perched on the edge of an armchair that probably cost more than a month's rent. Evelyn settled across from him on a cream-colored sofa, crossing her legs with unconscious elegance. I need you to understand something first, she said. What I'm about to propose is unusual. It may make you uncomfortable, but it's legitimate, it's temporary, and it will solve your immediate problems. You're not exactly selling it. I don't need to sell it. You need what I'm offering. She took a sip of her drink. I'm in the process of finalizing a merger with Hartwell Industries. It's a significant deal, $300 million, 18 months of negotiations. Everything is in place except for one small problem. Adrian waited. James Hartwell is old-fashioned, Evelyn continued. Traditional values, family first, that entire philosophy. He's been resistant to finalizing because he doesn't trust me personally. He thinks I'm too focused on business, too cold. He's made comments about my lack of personal relationships, my single status. Apparently, I'm not stable enough for a long-term partnership. That's discrimination. It's business, and I've dealt with worse. She set down her glass. Hartwell is hosting a charity gala 2 weeks from now. It's the final piece. If I can show him I'm not the corporate machine he thinks I am, he'll sign. I need to attend with a partner, someone who makes me look human. Adrian's stomach sank as he understood. You want me to pretend to be your boyfriend? For 6 weeks. The gala is the critical event, but there will be several others leading up to it. Dinners, meetings, public appearances. You'd need to be convincing. This is insane, what? This is practical. Evelyn leaned forward. In exchange, I will cover all of Lily's medical expenses. Current bills, ongoing treatment, any experimental therapies her doctors recommend. Everything, for as long as she needs it. The room tilted. What? I've already spoken with the head of oncology at Children's Memorial. They estimate her full treatment course, including the newer immunotherapy protocols, will run approximately $400,000 over the next 2 years. I'm offering to cover it. Adrian couldn't breathe. $400,000. Plus living expenses. I'll need you available for events, which means you can't maintain your current work schedule. I'll provide a monthly stipend to cover your rent, food, necessities. Lily will have the best care available. You'll have financial stability. All I need is 6 weeks of your time and your discretion. It was too much. Too easy. Why not hire an actor, someone professional? Because this needs to be believable. Hartwell is perceptive. He'll spot a performance. But you? She studied him with those dark eyes. You're real. A single father, working yourself to exhaustion, doing everything for your daughter. That story resonates. It makes me look human by association. So I'm a prop. You're a strategic asset. There's a difference. Adrian stood, needing to move, needing to think. He walked to the windows, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Lily was at Mrs. Chen's apartment, probably already asleep. Tomorrow was a treatment day. He'd have to wake her early, get her to the hospital, watch her try not to cry while the nurses worked. $400,000. 6 weeks of pretending. What exactly would I have to do? He asked without turning around. Attend events with me. Hold my hand in public. Look like you're enjoying my company. At the gala, we'll need to seem comfortable together. Dancing, conversation, the occasional touch. Nothing inappropriate, just believable. And after 6 weeks, the merger finalizes, we have an amicable public separation, and you receive a final payment to ensure your continued discretion. We part ways, and you never hear from me again. Adrian's reflection in the window looked like a stranger. You've really thought this through. I always do. He turned to face her. How do I know you'll actually pay for Lily's treatment? How do I know this isn't some elaborate scam? Evelyn pulled out her phone, typed something, and showed him the screen. A bank transfer confirmation. $20,000, the amount from the envelope, into a medical trust account in Lily's name. I already started, she said. That covers the past due bills from last month. Consider it a show of good faith. Adrian's throat tightened. You didn't have to do that. I know. I did it anyway. She set the phone aside. I'm offering you a solution, Adrian, not a perfect one. Not one without complications, but a real way to save your daughter's life. All I'm asking is 6 weeks of pretending to care about me in public. Given what you've already sacrificed for Lily, this should be easy. It should have been. It was just acting, just business. But something about the way Evelyn looked at him, calculating, certain, completely in control, made Adrian feel like he was signing away more than 6 weeks. I need to think about it, he said. You have until tomorrow morning. After that, the offer expires. She stood, smoothing her blouse. I'll have my car take you home. Sleep on it. Look at your daughter. Think about what 6 weeks means versus what $400,000 can buy her. You're not exactly playing fair. I never do. She walked him to the door. But I always deliver what I promise. Remember that. Adrian didn't sleep. He sat at the kitchen table, the business card in front of him, watching the hours tick by. At 2 a.m., he checked on Lily. She was curled up with her stuffed elephant, breathing shallow. Her medical bracelet gleamed in the dim light from the hallway. At 4 a.m., he pulled up Lily's medical records on the patient portal. The latest test results weren't good. Not critical, but declining. Dr. Patterson had mentioned experimental treatments at their last visit. Mentioned them in that careful tone doctors used when they were trying not to steal hope, but needed you to understand reality. Those treatments weren't covered by insurance. At 6 a.m., Adrian made coffee and watched the sunrise through their tiny window. Lily would be up soon. He'd have to get her ready, take her to treatment, Smile and tell her everything was fine while they pumped drugs into her body and hoped they worked. 6 weeks, $400,000. What would Jenny say? His wife had been practical above all else. She'd have seen this for exactly what it was: a transaction, a trade, dignity for survival. And she'd have told him to take it without hesitation, because Lily's life was worth more than pride. But Jenny wasn't here. Adrian was alone with this decision. His phone rang at exactly 8 a.m. Have you decided? Evelyn's voice, crisp and businesslike. Adrian closed his eyes, thought of Lily's laugh, thought of her 7th birthday last month when she'd been too tired to blow out all the candles, thought of how she'd asked him once, in a small, scared voice, if she was going to die like Mommy. I have conditions, he said. I'm listening. Lily can't know this is fake. If she asks, you're someone I'm dating naturally. I won't have her thinking her treatment depends on me lying. Agreed. I maintain custody in all parenting decisions. You don't get to swoop in and play savior with her directly. The medical bills are handled through trusts or whatever legal structure keeps your name off them. Done. What else? If at any point this starts to hurt Lily, emotionally, psychologically, anyway, I walk. Deal's off. I don't care about the money. A pause. That's acceptable. Anything else? Yeah. Adrian's voice hardened. You don't investigate me or my family anymore. No more photos of medical charts. No more digging into my life. Whatever we do it above board. Those are my terms. Understood. So we have an agreement? Adrian looked at Lily's bedroom corner, heard her starting to stir. We have an agreement. Excellent. I'll have my attorney draw up the contracts. Meet me tomorrow at my office, 10 a.m. We'll go over everything, make it legal. And Adrian? Her voice softened almost imperceptibly. You're doing the right thing. I'm doing the only thing, he corrected. After he hung up, Lily emerged from her corner, rubbing her eyes. Morning, Dad. Morning, baby. Ready for your treatment? She nodded, trying to be brave. Always so brave. Adrian pulled her into a hug, breathing in the strawberry shampoo smell of her hair. I love you, Lils. More than anything in the world. Love you too, Dad. And he'd do anything for her. Even sell 6 weeks of his life to a woman who traded in calculated arrangements and perfect control. Even if it meant pretending to love someone he didn't know. Even if something in Evelyn Drake's dark eyes suggested this might not stay pretend for long. The contracts arrived by courier the next morning, delivered in a leather portfolio that probably cost more than Adrian's weekly grocery budget. He spread them across the kitchen table while Lily ate cereal, the legal language dense enough to give him a headache. What's all that? She asked through a mouthful of cornflakes. Work stuff. You're a driver. Drivers don't have paperwork. She had him there. Adrian glanced at the clock, 8:47 a.m. He had an hour before the meeting at Drake Consolidated. Mrs. Chen had already agreed to take Lily to treatment today, though Adrian hated missing it, hated breaking their routine. I'm doing some extra work, he said carefully, helping someone with business things. What kind of business things? The boring kind. Eat your breakfast. Lily studied him with those two perceptive eyes. Is it because of the hospital bills? Adrian's chest tightened. Don't worry about that, baby. I heard you on the phone last week with the billing lady. She said we owed a lot. He thought she was asleep. Apparently, she'd inherited her mother's ability to hear everything she wasn't supposed to. Adrian abandoned the contracts and crouched beside her chair. Listen to me. You don't ever have to worry about the bills, okay? That's my job. Your job is to get better and keep making me laugh with your terrible jokes. My jokes aren't terrible. They're pretty terrible. She smiled, and Adrian memorized it, committed it to whatever part of his brain stored the things that kept him going when everything else fell apart. At 9:45, he dropped Lily at Mrs. Chen's with her backpack and medications. The elderly woman waved off his thanks the way she always did, but Adrian saw her glance at his dress shirt and khakis with curiosity. Job interview, he lied. Good luck, Mrs. Chen said, and meant it. The Drake Consolidated building was downtown, 63 floors of steel and glass that dominated the skyline. Adrian had driven past it 1,000 times without really seeing it. Now, walking through the revolving doors into a lobby that made the Meridian Hotel look modest, he felt that same imposter sensation creeping back. Security directed him to a private elevator. The ride to the top floor was silent, except for the soft classical music piped through hidden speakers. Adrian watched his reflection in the polished doors and tried to look like someone who belonged here. The elevator opened onto an executive floor that was all clean lines and muted colors. A receptionist who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine smiled at him. "Mr. Cole?" "That's me." "Ms. Drake is expecting you. Conference room 3 down the hall to your left." The conference room had windows overlooking the entire city. Adrian could see his apartment building from here, a tiny speck in the urban sprawl. The distance felt symbolic. Evelyn was already there, sitting at the head of a long table with an older man in an expensive suit. She stood when Adrian entered, and he noticed she was back in full armor today. Tailored navy dress, hair pulled back, minimal makeup that somehow made her more intimidating rather than less. "Adrian, right on time," she gestured to the man beside her. "This is Richard Huang, my attorney. He'll walk you through the agreement." Richard shook Adrian's hand with the firm grip of someone who'd spent a lifetime in boardrooms. "Mr. Cole, please sit. Can I get you coffee? Water?" "I'm fine." They weren't wasting time. Richard opened his own copy of the contract, clicking a pen with mechanical precision. "I'll summarize the key points," he said. "This is a personal services agreement with a term of 6 weeks, beginning today and ending after the Hartwell Industries Charity Gala on June 15th. During this period, you'll be expected to attend public events with Ms. Drake as her romantic partner. The schedule will be provided weekly, with a minimum of 3 appearances per week and a maximum of 7. Adrian glanced at Evelyn. She was watching him with that unreadable expression she seemed to wear like a second skin. Richard continued, "In exchange, Ms. Drake will establish a medical trust for your daughter's care with an initial funding of $400,000. Additionally, you'll receive a monthly stipend of $8,000 to cover living expenses and time away from your regular employment. Upon successful completion of the agreement, you'll receive a final discretionary payment of $50,000. The numbers made Adrian dizzy. "That's more than you said." "I revised the terms," Evelyn said. "You'll need clothes appropriate for the events we'll be attending. The stipend covers that, plus ensures Lily has everything she needs. Consider it an investment in making this arrangement work. That's over $500,000 total." "I'm aware of basic math, Adrian." Richard cleared his throat diplomatically. "There's also a comprehensive non-disclosure agreement. You cannot discuss the nature of this arrangement with anyone outside of the 3 people in this room. If the agreement is violated, the medical trust reverts to Ms. Drake's control and all payments cease immediately." "What about Lily?" Adrian asked. "The agreement says I can't tell anyone, but she's going to notice things." "Your daughter is exempt from the NDA," Richard said. "You can tell her you're dating Ms. Drake. You simply cannot tell her it's contractual. And after the 6 weeks, you and Ms. Drake will stage an amicable separation. We'll issue a brief public statement citing scheduling conflicts and mutual respect. The medical trust continues regardless. The final payment is made. The relationship ends." Richard slid a pen across the table. "Any questions?" "About 1,000. Adrian picked up the pen, feeling its weight. Probably cost more than his shoes. "What if something goes wrong?" he asked. "What if Hartwell sees through this?" "That's my problem, not yours," Evelyn said. "You show up, play the part, and get paid regardless of the outcome. And if I decide halfway through that I can't do this, then the agreement terminates, the payments stop, and the medical trust dissolves. You'd be responsible for any expenses already incurred." Her tone didn't change, but something in her eyes sharpened. "I don't recommend that option." Adrian looked at the signature line. "Thought about Lily at Mrs. Chen's apartment, probably watching cartoons while waiting to go to the hospital. Thought about Dr. Patterson's carefully neutral face when she'd mentioned experimental treatments." He signed. Richard witnessed it with practiced efficiency, then produced a second document. "This is the trust paperwork. Sign here and here. Ms. Drake has already funded the account. This just makes it official." $400,000. Adrian's hand shook slightly as he wrote his name. "Excellent." Richard gathered the documents with the satisfaction of a man who'd just closed a deal. "I'll file these today. Mr. Cole, you should see the trust account active by end of business. The first stipend payment will hit your personal account tomorrow morning." He left with a polite nod, and suddenly Adrian was alone with Evelyn in the too large conference room. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Like I just sold my soul." "You sold 6 weeks of your time. There's the difference." She stood smoothing her dress. "We should discuss logistics. The first event is Friday night, a fundraiser for the Arts Council. Black tie. I'll have my stylist send over options for you tomorrow." "I don't need a stylist." "Yes, you do. No offense, but what you're wearing right now wouldn't pass in these circles. Part of making this believable is looking the part." Adrian glanced down at his khakis. They were his nicest pants. "Right." Something flickered across Evelyn's face. Not quite sympathy, but close. She pulled out her phone, typed rapidly, then showed him the screen. It was a calendar, color-coded and detailed. "Friday is the fundraiser. Saturday, we're attending a dinner at the Hartwell Estate. Small gathering, very important. Next week, there's a gallery opening, a charity auction, and a business luncheon. I've marked the mandatory events in red and the optional ones in blue." Adrian counted 11 red marks. "That's more than 3 per week. The first 2 weeks are heavy. We need to establish the relationship quickly. It tapers off after the initial visibility." She pocketed her phone. "I'll need your measurements for the stylist, and we should probably have dinner together before Friday. Get comfortable with each other." "This isn't a real relationship, remember?" "No, but it needs to look like one. That means being able to hold a conversation without looking like hostages." Her mouth curved slightly. "Can you manage that?" "I'll try to contain my enthusiasm." "Good. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. I'll text you the restaurant." She paused at the door. "And Adrian? Thank you for agreeing to this." It was the first time she'd sounded remotely human. Adrian nodded, not trusting himself to respond. After she left, he stood at the windows for a long time, looking out at the city. Somewhere down there, Lily was getting treatment. Somewhere down there was his real life, the one that didn't involve $500,000 contracts and billionaire CEOs. His phone buzzed, a notification from his bank app. He opened it, and his breath caught. The stipend had already been deposited. $8,000, just sitting there in his checking account like it belonged. Another notification. An email from Children's Memorial Hospital. Subject line, account update. Adrian opened it with shaking hands. The balance showed 0. Every past due bill, every outstanding charge, every late fee, all marked as paid in full. He had to sit down. His phone rang. "Mrs. Chen." "Adrian? Lily's treatment went well today. She's tired but in good spirits. I made her soup for lunch." "Thank you," Adrian managed. "I'll pick her up in an hour." "No rush. We're watching her favorite show. Take your time." After he hung up, Adrian just sat there in the conference room, holding his phone, trying to process what he'd just done. He'd signed a contract to fake a relationship with a woman he barely knew. He'd accepted more money than he'd ever seen in his life. He'd agreed to attend galas and fundraisers and pretend to be someone he wasn't, and in return, Lily would live. When he finally left the building, the security guard wished him a good day. The doorman smiled. Everyone treated him like he was supposed to be there, like he belonged in this world of money and power. Adrian wondered how long it would take before he forgot it was all pretend. The restaurant Evelyn chose for their dinner was the kind of place that didn't list prices on the menu. Adrian arrived 15 minutes early, too nervous to be fashionably late, and spent the time feeling underdressed despite the new shirt and slacks the stylist had sent over that afternoon. The stylist, a woman named Vanessa, who spoke in rapid-fire fashion terms Adrian didn't understand, had shown up at his apartment with 2 assistants and enough clothing to stock a department store. Lily had watched with wide eyes as they'd transformed the living room into a fitting area. "Dad, who are these people?" "They're helping me with that work thing I mentioned." "You need 3 people to pick out clothes?" Apparently. Vanessa had been ruthlessly efficient, dismissing most of Adrian's existing wardrobe with polite disdain and replacing it with tailored shirts, dress pants, and 2 suits that fit better than anything he'd ever owned. She'd also given him a crash course in which fork to use when, how to tie a bow tie, and the importance of polished shoes. "You clean up well," she'd said approvingly. "Ms. Drake has good taste." Now sitting at the restaurant bar nursing a water he was too cheap to replace with actual alcohol, Adrian caught his reflection in the mirror behind the bottles. He did look different, more polished, like someone who might believably date a billionaire. "Sorry I'm late." He turned to find Evelyn sliding onto the bar stool beside him. She wore a simple black dress and minimal jewelry, her hair loose around her shoulders. Without the armor of her business suits, she looked younger, almost approachable. "You're not late," Adrian said. "I was early." Punctuality. I like that. She ordered a vodka martini from the bartender, then turned her attention fully to Adrian. "How did it go with Vanessa?" "She's terrifying. She's the best, and she clearly worked miracles." Evelyn's gaze traveled over his new outfit with professional assessment. "You'll fit in perfectly on Friday." "That's what I'm afraid of." The hostess appeared to show them to their table, a corner booth with enough privacy for conversation, but enough visibility to be seen by the other diners. Adrian noticed several people glancing their way as they walked through the restaurant. "They're looking at you," Evelyn said quietly, sliding into the booth. "They're looking at you." "They're looking at us. Get used to it." The waiter materialized with menus and wine recommendations. Evelyn ordered for both of them with the ease of someone who'd done this 1,000 times, and Adrian was grateful. Half the items on the menu were in French. Once they were alone, Evelyn leaned back and studied him with those dark, assessing eyes. "Tell me about Lily." Adrian stiffened. "Why?" "Because I'll need to ask about her in public. Better to know the real answers now so I don't accidentally say something wrong." She sipped her martini. "What is she like? What makes her laugh?" It felt invasive, sharing Lily with this stranger. But Evelyn was right. They needed to know each other's basic details to make this work. "She loves animals," Adrian said slowly. "Wants to be a veterinarian when she grows up. She's obsessed with this show about talking dogs. Watches it every night. She's good at math, terrible at sports. She tells jokes that make no sense but laughs so hard at them that you can't help laughing too. What's her favorite food?" "Mac and cheese, the orange kind from the box, not the fancy stuff, and strawberry ice cream." Adrian's throat tightened. She hasn't been able to eat much lately. The treatment makes her nauseous. Evelyn's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. The new treatment plan should help with that. Dr. Patterson is one of the best in the country. "You talked to her doctor?" "I told you, I'm thorough." She paused. "Lily's lucky to have you. I'm the one who's lucky." The food arrived, some kind of fish Adrian didn't recognize, plated like art. He picked up the correct fork on the first try, which felt like a small victory. "What about you?" Evelyn asked. "What do you like? What makes you laugh?" Adrian almost said he couldn't remember the last time he'd laughed, but that felt too honest. "I used to like building things, back when I had the construction business." "Why did you stop?" "You already know why. You investigated me, remember?" "I know the facts. I don't know how you feel about them." It was the second time she'd asked something personal, and Adrian realized this was part of the arrangement. They needed to know each other, at least superficially, to make this believable. "My wife got sick," he said quietly. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. She lasted 8 months after diagnosis. The medical bills destroyed our savings, so I dissolved the business to take care of her full time. After she died, I needed work that was flexible enough to be there for Lily, so I started driving. He met Evelyn's gaze. "That's the story you already know. The part I don't talk about is that I was good at building things. I liked watching a project come together, seeing something tangible at the end. Driving doesn't give you that. Every day resets to 0. Evelyn was quiet for a moment. "Do you resent it, the driving?" "I resent that I have to do it, but I don't resent Lily needing me. There's a difference. You're a better person than most. I'm just a father." They ate in silence for a while. The fish was good. Adrian had no idea what it was, but it was good. Around them, the restaurant hummed with quiet conversation and the soft clink of silverware on china. "Friday night," Evelyn said eventually. "The fundraiser. There will be about 200 people there, most of them donors or board members. James Hartwell will be attending with his wife. I'll introduce you as my partner. Keep it vague about how we met. If anyone asks directly, we can say we connected through mutual friends." "Do we have mutual friends?" "We do now. I'll brief you on the key players tomorrow." She pulled out her phone, scrolling through what looked like detailed notes. "Hartwell will be watching us carefully. He's looking for signs that I'm capable of personal connection, of putting relationships before business. So we'll need to seem connected." "Connected how?" "The usual things, standing close, touching occasionally, looking at each other like we actually enjoy the conversation. She glanced up. Can you do that? I can try. You'll need to do better than try. These people read body language like it's their native tongue. If you look uncomfortable, they'll notice. If I look controlling, they'll judge. We need to seem like equals, like partners. Adrian set down his fork. You realize how crazy this is, right? 6 weeks ago, I was driving you to a meeting. Now I'm supposed to convince a room full of rich people that we're in love? Not in love, just involved, interested, committed enough to be serious, but new enough to still have that spark. Evelyn's mouth curved slightly. Think you can manage interested? In you? Don't sound so horrified. I'm not. Adrian stopped, frustrated. This is weird. Sitting here discussing how to fake chemistry. It's strategic. There's a difference. She finished her martini and signaled for another. Tell me something true about yourself, something not in your file. The request caught him off guard. Why? Because I want to know, and because we need to be able to have real conversations in public. So, something true. Adrian thought about it. I'm afraid of disappointing Lily. Every day. That she'll realize I'm not enough. That I can't give her the life her mother would have wanted for her. That I'm failing at the only thing that matters. Evelyn's expression softened almost imperceptibly. You're not failing. You don't know that. I know you signed a contract you're clearly uncomfortable with because it meant she'd get the medical care she needs. I know you show up at every treatment, every appointment, every hard moment. I know she looks at you like you hung the moon. She paused. That's not failure, Adrian. That's love. He didn't know what to say to that. Evelyn Drake, cold, calculating, ruthless Evelyn Drake, had just said something genuinely kind. It didn't fit the image he'd built of her. Your turn, he said. Something true about you. She considered the question while the waiter delivered her second martini. I'm lonely, most of the time. I've built an empire. I have more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. And I go home every night to an empty penthouse. People are afraid of me or want something from me, but nobody actually knows me. She trailed off, then shook her head. It's the life I chose. I'm not complaining. Sounds like complaining. Observation. There's a difference. Adrian found himself almost smiling. You have a lot of differences. I'm a complicated woman. They finished dinner with easier conversation. She asked about his favorite movies. He asked about her work. Evelyn was surprisingly willing to talk about the business side of things, and Adrian found himself genuinely interested. She was brilliant, no question, with a mind that saw patterns and opportunities most people missed. But there was something else there too. A drive that went beyond money, beyond success, like she was trying to prove something to someone who wasn't listening anymore. Your father, Adrian said. You're still competing with him. Evelyn's eyes sharpened. Excuse me? The company. You said you tripled its value since taking over. You talk about the business like it's a scoreboard. You're trying to prove you were the right choice. Amateur psychology isn't part of our agreement. Neither is honesty, apparently, but here we are. They stared at each other across the table, and Adrian expected her to shut down, to revert to the cold CEO who'd handed him contracts and demanded compliance. Instead, she laughed. It was a real laugh, surprised and genuine, and it transformed her face. Suddenly, she wasn't the intimidating billionaire. She was just a woman who'd been called on her patterns. You're observant, she said. I'm a driver. People think we don't exist, so they say things, do things. You learn to read people. And what do you read about me? That you're scared of being wrong, of being weak, of being your father's daughter instead of your own person. So you control everything, manipulate every variable, and hope nobody notices you're terrified of failing. Evelyn's smile faded. That's uncomfortably accurate. So I'm right? You're not wrong. She finished her second martini in one swallow. We should go. I have an early meeting tomorrow. Adrian signaled for the check, but Evelyn waved him off. I've got it. Consider it part of the arrangement. Outside, her car was waiting, a sleek black sedan with a driver who opened doors and didn't make eye contact. Evelyn paused before getting in. Friday night, 7 p.m. I'll send a car for you and Lily. Lily? The fundraiser has a children's program. Games, activities, supervised by professionals. She can come if she's feeling up to it. Might be good for her to get out of the apartment. It was thoughtful in a way Adrian hadn't expected. I'll ask her. Good. Thus Evelyn hesitated, which was so unlike her that Adrian immediately noticed. Tonight was pleasant. Thank you for being honest with me. You paid for honesty. That was in the contract, right? Actually, I didn't. You could have stayed surface level and still fulfilled the terms. She met his eyes. I appreciate that you didn't. Before Adrian could respond, she slid into the car and was gone. He stood on the sidewalk for a moment, watching the taillights disappear into traffic. The dinner had been strange, too honest, too real. They were supposed to be business partners in a calculated arrangement, but something about the conversation had felt genuine. That scared him more than the contracts. His phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Chen. Lily was asking when he'd be home. Adrian caught a rideshare back to his apartment, back to his real life. But the new clothes felt different against his skin, and Evelyn's laugh echoed in his head, and he wondered if 6 weeks would be nearly enough time to remember this was all pretend. When he got home, Lily was curled up on the couch with her elephant, watching her talking dog show. She looked up when he entered, and her face brightened. How was your work thing? Productive. Adrian sat beside her, and she immediately snuggled into his side. How are you feeling? Tired, but okay. She yawned. Mrs. Chen said the hospital called. Something about my treatment being approved? The experimental immunotherapy. Already covered by the trust. Already changing their options. Yeah, Adrian said, his throat tight. Some good news for once. That's because of your new job, right? The boring business thing? Too perceptive, always too perceptive. Something like that. Lily was quiet for a moment, then, Dad, are you happy? The question startled him. What? You seem different, less worried maybe. I just wondered if you were happy. Adrian pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. As long as I have you, baby, I'm happy. It was true. And it was also true that for the first time in 8 months, he could breathe without the weight of impossible bills crushing his chest. He could think about Lily's future without immediately calculating how much time they had left. He could almost believe this crazy arrangement might actually work. Friday would tell him if he was right or spectacularly wrong. Either way, he was committed now. The contracts were signed, the money was deposited, and Evelyn Drake was expecting him to play the part of devoted partner to a woman he barely knew. Dad? Yeah? Your show's over. You're watching mine now. Adrian glanced at the TV. Talking dogs were solving mysteries. It made about as much sense as his life these days. Fair enough, he said. They watched together until Lily fell asleep against his shoulder, and Adrian sat in the dark apartment, holding his daughter, trying not to think about how quickly 6 weeks would pass or what happened when the arrangement ended and he had to go back to pretending Evelyn Drake had never existed. The tuxedo felt like a costume. Adrian stood in front of his bathroom mirror Friday evening, adjusting the bow tie for the 3rd time. Vanessa had sent it over with detailed instructions, a video tutorial even, but his fingers kept fumbling the silk. Behind him, Lily sat on the edge of the bathtub, legs swinging, watching with barely contained amusement. You look fancy, she said. I look ridiculous. You look like a penguin, a fancy penguin. Adrian caught her eye in the mirror and couldn't help smiling. Thanks, baby. Real confidence boost. Mrs. Chen says you have a date. His hand stilled on the bow tie. Mrs. Chen talks too much. Is it true? This was the conversation he'd been dreading. Adrian turned to face his daughter leaning against the sink. Lily looked small in her favorite purple dress, the one with sparkles that she insisted on wearing to every important occasion. Her medical bracelet caught the light. I've been seeing someone, he said carefully. Her name is Evelyn. She invited us to an event tonight. Us? I'm going too? If you want. There's a kids program with games and stuff, but only if you're feeling up to it. Lily's face lit up in a way Adrian hadn't seen in months. Really? I can go? As long as you promise to tell me if you get tired. No pushing yourself. I promise. She hopped off the bathtub edge, then swayed slightly. Adrian caught her elbow, steadying her. You okay? Yeah, I just stood up too fast. But her smile dimmed a little, and Adrian saw the familiar frustration cross her face. Being 7 shouldn't mean getting dizzy from standing up. "We don't have to go," he said gently. "We can stay home. Watch your show." "No, I want to go. I want to meet Evelyn." The way she said the name, careful, curious, made Adrian's chest tight. Lily had been asking about his work more lately, about the new clothes and the changed schedule. She was too smart not to notice something was different. "She's nice," Adrian said, which wasn't exactly a lie. Evelyn had been surprisingly decent during their dinner. "But she's also my boss for this job, so we need to be on our best behavior." "Is she pretty?" "What kind of question is that?" "Mrs. Chen says all the good ones are pretty." Adrian made a mental note to have a word with Mrs. Chen about appropriate conversations with 7-year-olds. "She's professional." "That means yes." Lily grinned, and Adrian realized he'd been played by a second grader. The car arrived at exactly 7 p.m. Not a rideshare this time, but an actual town car with a driver who introduced himself as Marcus and opened doors with practiced efficiency. Lily's eyes went wide as she climbed into the leather interior. "Dad, this is so cool!" "Remember what we talked about? Polite, respectful, no asking how much things cost." "I know." But she was practically bouncing in her seat, and Adrian couldn't bring himself to dampen her excitement. She'd had so few reasons to be excited lately. Marcus drove them to the Grandview Hotel, where the fundraiser was being held. The building was all white columns and marble steps, with valets in red jackets directing a steady stream of expensive cars. Adrian felt his anxiety ratchet up as they pulled into the circular drive. Evelyn was waiting at the entrance. She wore a floor-length gown in deep emerald that probably cost more than Adrian's car. Her hair swept up in something complicated that left her neck and shoulders bare. Diamond earrings caught the light. She looked like she belonged on a magazine cover, and Adrian felt every inch the imposter in his rented tuxedo. Then she smiled, at Lily, not at him, and something in her face softened. "You must be Lily. I've heard so much about you." Lily hid slightly behind Adrian's leg, suddenly shy. "Hi. I love your dress. Purple is definitely your color." Evelyn crouched down to Lily's level, which must have been difficult in that gown and heels. "Your dad tells me you like animals. The children's program tonight has a visit from some therapy dogs. I thought you might enjoy that." Lily's shyness evaporated. "Really? What kind of dogs?" "Golden retrievers, I think. Maybe a Labrador, too." "Come on, I'll introduce you to Sarah. She runs the program." She offered her hand, and Lily took it without hesitation. Adrian watched them walk into the hotel together, Evelyn explaining something that made Lily laugh, and felt something shift in his chest. This wasn't in the contract. Being kind to his daughter, making her feel special, that wasn't part of the arrangement. "Mr. Cole?" Adrian turned to find Marcus standing patiently beside the car. "Ms. Drake asked me to let you know she'll meet you inside the main ballroom after Lily's settled." Right. The performance was starting. The Grandview's lobby was packed with people who looked like they'd stepped out of a lifestyle magazine. Women in gowns that probably had designer names Adrian wouldn't recognize. Men in tuxedos that fit perfectly, unlike his. Everyone holding champagne glasses and laughing at jokes that probably weren't that funny. Adrian accepted a glass from a passing waiter and tried to blend in. He'd studied the briefing notes Evelyn had sent over, knew that James Hartwell would be here with his wife Catherine, that the fundraiser was for the city's Arts Council, that the minimum donation to attend was $5,000. He knew he was supposed to look comfortable, confident, like he belonged in Evelyn's world. He felt like a fraud. "Adrian." Evelyn appeared at his elbow, materializing out of the crowd like she'd been born to navigate it. Up close, she was even more striking. The dress fit her perfectly, and there was color in her cheeks that hadn't been there at dinner. "Lily's settled," she said quietly. "Sarah's wonderful with kids. She'll keep her busy and make sure she doesn't overdo it." "You told her about Lily's condition?" "I told her Lily gets tired easily and needs monitoring. Sarah's a pediatric nurse on her days off. She'll watch for any problems." Another thing that wasn't in the contract. Adrian studied Evelyn's face, looking for the angle, the calculation, but all he saw was genuine concern. "Thank you," he said. "You're welcome." She adjusted his bow tie slightly. It had gone crooked again. "Ready to make an entrance?" Not even a little bit. Good. Confidence is overrated anyway. Her hand slipped into his, fingers lacing naturally. Just follow my lead and try not to look terrified. They entered the ballroom together, and Adrian felt the weight of 100 curious gazes. The room was stunning. Crystal chandeliers, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a string quartet playing something classical in one corner. Round tables draped in white linen surrounded a dance floor that gleamed like glass. Evelyn navigated through the crowd with practiced ease, stopping to greet people, introducing Adrian as her partner with just enough affection in her tone to sell it. He shook hands, made small talk, tried to remember names he'd forget in 5 minutes. Evelyn, I was hoping to see you here. Adrian recognized James Hartwell from the photos. Mid-60s, silver hair, expensive suit that somehow still looked rumpled. His wife, Catherine, was petite and elegant, with kind eyes that immediately put Adrian at ease. James, Catherine, wonderful to see you both. Evelyn's hand tightened slightly on Adrian's. This is Adrian Cole, Adrian James and Catherine Hartwell. Pleasure to meet you. Hartwell's handshake was firm, assessing. Cole, that name sounds familiar. I doubt it, Adrian said. I'm not in your circles. What field are you in? Here was the dangerous part. Adrian had memorized the cover story, simplified version of the truth, vague enough to be believable. I used to run a construction management firm, small operations, mostly residential projects. Used to? Family circumstances changed. I do independent consulting now, which was technically true if you counted driving as consulting on efficient routes. Catherine smiled warmly. Family first, I respect that. Do you have children? A daughter, Lily. She's 7. How wonderful. Is she here tonight? She's in the children's program. First time at something like this. She was excited about the therapy dogs. Catherine's smile widened. Oh, Sarah's program is marvelous. My grandchildren love it. You'll have trouble getting her to leave. They talked for a few more minutes. Easy conversation about the fundraiser, the Arts Council, Catherine's grandchildren. Hartwell remained reserved, watching Adrian with calculation that reminded him uncomfortably of Evelyn. But Catherine was genuinely warm, and Adrian found himself relaxing slightly. We should find our table, Evelyn said eventually. But I'm sure we'll see you both throughout the evening. Count on it. Hartwell's gaze shifted to Evelyn. I'd like a moment later if you have time. There are some details about the merger I'd like to discuss. Of course, I'm always available for business. Even on a Friday night with your partner? There was something pointed in the question. Evelyn's hand found Adrian's again. Adrian understands that my work is important. He's been incredibly supportive. That's rare. Cherish it. Hartwell nodded to them both before steering Catherine toward another group. Once they were out of earshot, Adrian exhaled slowly. That felt like a test. It was. You passed. Evelyn guided him toward their assigned table. Catherine likes you. That's good. Her opinion matters to James more than he'd ever admit. And James? He's still evaluating, which is fine. We have all night to convince him. She paused, glancing at him. You're doing well, by the way. Better than I expected. Thanks for the vote of confidence. I mean it. You're natural with people. Not performing, just present. It's refreshing. Their table was near the dance floor, close enough to the action to be visible, but not so close as to be conspicuous. Adrian recognized a few faces from the briefing notes, a city councilwoman, a museum director, a tech CEO who'd made billions on some app Adrian had never heard of. Dinner was served in courses that kept arriving. Small portions of food Adrian couldn't identify, but was too nervous to really taste. Evelyn carried most of the conversation, discussing art acquisitions and funding initiatives with the expertise of someone who'd been doing this her whole life. But she kept including Adrian, asking his opinion, touching his arm when she laughed at something he said. It should have felt fake, calculated. But somehow it didn't. You're good at this, he murmured during a lull in conversation. At what? Making it look real. Evelyn's eyes met his. Maybe it's not entirely an act. Before Adrian could process that, the music changed. The quartet launched into something slower, more romantic, and couples began moving toward the dance floor. We should dance, Evelyn said. I know. I read your file. No formal dance training. She stood, offering her hand. But everyone's watching, and couples dance at these things, so we're dancing. Adrian let her lead him onto the floor, trying not to think about the last time he danced. His wedding, 12 years ago, Jenny's head on his shoulder while they swayed to some song he couldn't remember anymore. Put your hand here. Evelyn guided his hand to her waist. Other hand holds mine, and relax. You look like you're about to face a firing squad. That would be less terrifying. Just follow my lead. Small steps. Don't think about it. They moved into the rhythm of the music, and Adrian focused on not stepping on her feet. Evelyn was a good dancer, confident, graceful, compensating for his awkwardness with practiced ease. Around them, other couples spun and glided, but Adrian was hyper-aware of every point of contact. Her hand in his palm against the silk of her dress. The faint scent of her perfume, something subtle and expensive. You're overthinking, she said quietly. I usually do. Try not to. Just be here. Adrian met her eyes and found her watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Not the cool calculation he'd come to expect, something softer, more real. Why did you really choose me? He asked. For this arrangement, there had to be easier options. Evelyn was quiet for a moment, guiding them through a turn. I told you, you're authentic. People respond to that. That's the business answer. What's the real one? Maybe they're the same thing, but her gaze flickered, just for a second. Or maybe I saw something in you that reminded me of someone I used to be, before I became this. This? Untouchable, unreachable, the ice queen who makes men cry in boardrooms. Her mouth curved slightly. I used to care about things beyond quarterly earnings. Used to think building something meaningful mattered more than building an empire. You still have that. Despite everything life's thrown at you, you still believe in things that matter. You believe in things that matter. I believe in winning. There's a difference. The song transitioned into something else, but they kept dancing. Adrian was starting to get the rhythm, or maybe he was just getting used to being this close to her. For what it's worth, he said, I don't think you're untouchable. No? No. I think you just convinced yourself you have to be. But the woman who made sure Lily had therapy dogs tonight, who paid her medical bills before I even signed the contract, that's not someone without a heart. Evelyn's expression shuddered slightly. Don't confuse strategy with sentiment, Adrian. Which one was dinner the other night, when you told me you were lonely? A moment of weakness. Or honesty? They moved in silence for a few more measures. Then Evelyn leaned in slightly, her voice dropping to something only he could hear. Be careful, she said. We're playing roles here. Don't mistake performance for reality. I'm not the one who needs that reminder. Her eyes flashed. Meaning? Meaning you keep saying this is all calculated, all strategy, but you're the one who keeps doing things that aren't in the contract. You're the one who looks at me sometimes like you've forgotten we're pretending. You're imagining things. Am I? The song ended. Polite applause rippled through the ballroom. Evelyn stepped back, putting professional distance between them, and Adrian saw the walls go back up in real time. We should return to the table, she said. Evelyn, that's enough dancing for now. We've been seen. That's what matters. She walked away, leaving Adrian standing alone on the dance floor. He watched her go, that emerald dress cutting through the crowd, and wondered which of them was lying, her when she said it was all performance, or him when he pretended he believed her. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of conversations and carefully orchestrated interactions. Hartwell found them twice more, each time asking subtle questions that felt like tests. Evelyn navigated them flawlessly, playing the part of successful businesswoman balanced by personal connection. And Adrian played along, being charming and supportive and just real enough to sell it. But something had shifted on the dance floor, something neither of them seemed willing to acknowledge. At 10 p.m., Adrian went to check on Lily. He found her in the children's room, exhausted but happy, covered in paint from some art project, and talking animatedly to a golden retriever who was far more interested in the treats she kept sneaking him. Dad, this is Chester. He knows 12 tricks. That's impressive. Adrian crouched beside her. How are you feeling? Ready to head home? Can we stay a little longer? Sarah said we're making friendship bracelets next. Sarah appeared, young and energetic despite the late hour. She's been great all evening. no signs of fatigue beyond normal kid tiredness. But we can cut the craft short if you need to go. 15 more minutes, Adrian decided. Then we're leaving, okay, Lils? Okay. She hugged him tight, and Adrian caught the smell of paint and strawberry shampoo and something uniquely Lily. This was the best night ever, Dad. His throat tightened. Yeah? Yeah. Thank you for bringing me. When he returned to the ballroom, Evelyn was deep in conversation with Hartwell and two other executives. She caught his eye across the room, and something passed between them, recognition maybe, or understanding. He nodded toward the children's room, indicating he was taking Lily home soon. She excused herself with practiced grace and met him near the coat check. Everything okay? Fine. She's happy, tired. I'm going to get her home. I'll have Marcus bring the car around. You should stay. Work the room. Isn't that the point? Evelyn hesitated. I could leave with you. Make it look like I'm prioritizing family over business. Or it could look desperate. You know this world better than I do. Adrian glanced back at the ballroom. Besides, Hartwell's watching. Might as well give him something to think about. Which is? That you're with someone who doesn't need you to perform, who understands that you have work to do and doesn't resent it. He met her eyes. That's what he wants to see, right? Someone who balances you instead of competing with you. Something flickered across Evelyn's face. When did you get so perceptive about business psychology? I pay attention. It's kind of my thing. She was quiet for a moment, then reached out and straightened his bow tie. It had gone crooked again during the dancing. Her fingers lingered slightly longer than necessary. Thank you, she said quietly. For tonight. For making this work. It's what you're paying me for. Still, you were good. Lily emerged from the children's room, clutching a friendship bracelet and a balloon. She spotted Evelyn and immediately ran over, exhaustion forgotten. Look what I made. Sarah helped, but I did most of it myself. It's beautiful, Evelyn said, and Adrian could hear the genuine warmth in her voice. What are the colors? Purple and yellow. Those are my favorites. Do you want one? I could make you one next time. I'd like that very much. Lily beamed, then yawned hugely. Adrian scooped her up. She was getting too big for this, but tonight he didn't care, and she settled against his shoulder like she had when she was 3. Say goodnight to Evelyn, he prompted. Night, Evelyn. Thank you for the dogs. You're welcome, sweetheart. Sleep well. Marcus appeared with the car, and Adrian carried Lily out into the cool night air. She was asleep before they left the parking lot, friendship bracelet clutched in one small hand, balloon string wrapped around her wrist. Adrian sat in the dark car, holding his daughter, watching the city lights stream past. The tuxedo still felt like a costume. The evening still felt surreal, but Lily had smiled more tonight than she had in months, and whatever else happened, that was worth it. His phone buzzed with a text from Evelyn. Just one line. You were right about the dance. I keep forgetting it's pretend. Adrian stared at the message for a long time before responding. Maybe we both do. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Her response came 5 minutes later. That's dangerous. I know, Adrian typed back. We should be more careful. Probably. Another long pause, then, good night, Adrian. Good night. He pocketed his phone and looked down at Lily, still sleeping peacefully. In 2 weeks, he'd been to a billionaire's penthouse, signed contracts worth $500,000, and slow danced with a woman who terrified him and intrigued him in equal measure. He'd stepped into a world that wasn't his and somehow managed not to fall on his face. But Evelyn was right. It was dangerous, this blurring of lines between performance and reality. Dangerous to forget that she was paying him to play a part. Dangerous to start caring what she thought beyond the professional arrangement they'd agreed to. Dangerous to notice that when she'd touched his hand during dinner, or when they'd danced, or when she'd crouched down to talk to Lily, in those moments, she hadn't looked like someone performing a role. She'd looked like someone trying to remember what it felt like to be real. Marcus pulled up to Adrian's apartment building, and the contrast was jarring. From the Grandview Hotel to this cramped complex with peeling paint and broken security lights. From chandeliers and champagne to studio apartments and hand-me-down furniture. Adrian carried Lily upstairs, got her into pajamas without fully waking her, and tucked her into her corner bedroom. She mumbled something about Chester the dog and friendship bracelets, then drifted back to sleep. He changed out of the tuxedo carefully, hanging it exactly as Vanessa had instructed. In the bathroom mirror, he still looked like that other Adrian, the one who belonged at charity galas and knew which fork to use. But standing in his cramped apartment in his worn pajama pants, the illusion cracked. This was who he really was. Single father, struggling to get by, pretending to be someone else because his daughter needed him to. And Evelyn Drake, in her emerald gown and diamond earrings, was someone else entirely. Someone who lived in penthouses and closed $300 million mergers and had never had to choose between paying rent or buying groceries. The fact that she'd admitted to being lonely didn't change the fundamental difference between their worlds. The fact that dancing with her had felt natural didn't mean anything beyond good acting. The fact that she'd texted him after they'd left, admitting she kept forgetting it was pretend, that was dangerous, yes, but it was also probably just the champagne talking. Adrian climbed into bed, but sleep didn't come easily. He kept replaying the evening, Hartwell's assessing gaze, Catherine's warm smile, the weight of Evelyn's hand in his, the moment on the dance floor when she'd looked at him and he'd seen past the Ice Queen to someone who might actually care. His phone buzzed again. Another text from Evelyn. I looked into experimental treatments for Lily. Dr. Patterson wants to try a new immunotherapy protocol. It's expensive, but the success rates are promising. I've already approved the funding. First session is scheduled for Wednesday, if you agree. Adrian sat up, reading the message 3 times. She was working at 11 p.m. on a Friday, researching his daughter's medical options. That wasn't in the contract. Why are you doing this? He texted back. The response came quickly. Because I can. Because she deserves every chance. Because you shouldn't have to worry about the money while she's fighting for her life. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now. Adrian lay back down, phone still in his hand, and stared at the ceiling. In 3 weeks, he'd gone from barely keeping his head above water to having more financial security than he'd known in years. He'd gone from invisible driver to fake boyfriend of a billionaire. He'd gone from certain his daughter might not survive to having access to treatments that could actually save her life. And all it cost was 6 weeks of pretending to be in love with a woman who was making it increasingly difficult to remember it was pretend. His phone buzzed one more time. Sleep well, Adrian. Tomorrow we have the Hartwell estate dinner. I'll brief you in the morning. Looking forward to it, he lied. Or maybe it wasn't entirely a lie anymore. Maybe part of him was looking forward to seeing her again, to more conversations that felt too honest, to more moments where they both forgot they were performing. Maybe that was the most dangerous thing of all. Adrian set his phone aside and closed his eyes. Tomorrow would come soon enough, with all its complications and carefully orchestrated pretense. Tonight, he'd just hold on to the memory of Lily's happy face and try not to think about how quickly 6 weeks would pass. Try not to think about what happened when the arrangement ended and he had to go back to his real life, where women like Evelyn Drake didn't exist and 7-year-olds with cancer didn't get friendship bracelets from therapy dogs, and everything was exactly as hard as it had always been. Try not to think about the fact that some part of him was already dreading that return to normal, because normal meant losing this. And he was starting to realize he didn't want to lose it nearly as much as he should. The truth hit Adrian like a freight train on a Tuesday afternoon, 2 weeks into the arrangement, while he was folding laundry in his apartment, and Evelyn was 1,700 miles away closing a deal in Chicago. It hit him because his phone rang with a call from Dr. Patterson, and the first person he wanted to tell the news to wasn't Mrs. Chen or his brother in Portland, or even Lily herself. It was Evelyn. Mr. Cole, I have good news, Doctor, Patterson said, and Adrian could hear the smile in her voice. Lily's latest labs came back. The new immunotherapy is working. Her markers are down significantly. Better response than we'd hoped for at this stage. Adrian sat down hard on the couch, laundry forgotten. You're sure? I'm sure. It's early, and we need to continue monitoring closely, but this is exactly what we wanted to see. Whatever you're doing differently, keep doing it. Less stress clearly agrees with her system. After he hung up, Adrian stared at his phone for a full minute. Then, without thinking it through, he called Evelyn. She answered on the third ring, slightly breathless. Adrian, is everything okay? Lily's labs came back. The treatment's working. Silence. Then, that's wonderful. I'm so glad. I just thought you should know, since you arranged it all. I didn't arrange her recovery. That's all Lily. And you. A pause. I'm in a meeting. Can I call you back in an hour? Yeah, of course. Sorry for interrupting. Don't be. Her voice softened. I'm really happy for you both, Adrian. She hung up, and Adrian sat there holding the phone, trying to understand why her happiness mattered so much to him. Why sharing this moment with her felt as natural as breathing. Why the past 2 weeks of carefully orchestrated public appearances had started to feel less like performance and more like something he looked forward to. That was when he realized he was in trouble. The Hartwell estate dinner the night after the fundraiser had gone better than expected. James had warmed to Adrian over discussions of construction challenges. Turned out Hartwell had started his empire building apartment complexes in the 80s. They'd talked foundation issues and permit nightmares while Evelyn and Catherine discussed the museum's upcoming exhibition. You've got a good head on your shoulders, Hartwell had said, refilling Adrian's wine glass. Evelyn's always been brilliant with numbers. What she needed was someone who could ground her, remind her there's more to life than the next deal. Adrian had smiled and said something appropriate, all while feeling like a fraud. Because he wasn't grounding Evelyn. He was being paid to pretend to ground her. There was a difference, even if the line kept getting blurrier. After that dinner came a gallery opening where Evelyn had explained modern art to him in whispers that made him actually understand why people paid millions for paintings that looked like accidents. Then a business luncheon where she'd held his hand under the table and he'd felt her thumb trace absent patterns on his palm. A charity auction where they'd bid on a weekend getaway neither of them had any intention of taking, just to make Hartwell smile. Each event chipped away at Adrian's certainty that this was purely business. Each conversation that ran too long, each laugh that came too easily, each moment when their eyes met across a room and something passed between them that had nothing to do with their agreement, it all added up to something Adrian was afraid to name. His phone rang again. Evelyn calling back sooner than promised. I left the meeting, she said without preamble. Told them I had a family emergency. Tell me everything Dr. Patterson said. Adrian found himself smiling despite his confusion. You don't have to. Tell me anyway. So he did. Told her about the lab results, about Lily's improved energy levels, about how his daughter had eaten a full breakfast that morning without getting nauseous. Evelyn listened without interrupting, and Adrian could picture her, probably standing in some hotel hallway, still in whatever power suit she'd worn to the meeting, completely focused on his words. She's going to be okay, Evelyn said when he finished. You know that, right? She's strong, like her father. I don't feel strong. You're the strongest person I know. She said it matter-of-factly, like it was obvious. You've been doing this alone for 8 months, working yourself to exhaustion, showing up for every treatment, never letting Lily see how scared you are. That's not weak, Adrian. His throat tightened. I called you first, before anyone else. I don't know why. Yes, you do. The honesty in her voice made his chest ache, because she was right. He did know why. He just didn't want to admit it. When do you get back from Chicago? He asked instead. Tomorrow morning. We have the museum gala tomorrow night. Are you ready for it? As ready as I'll ever be. Vanessa sent over another tuxedo. Apparently the first one wasn't formal enough. Evelyn laughed, and the sound made something warm spread through Adrian's chest. The museum board is very particular, but you'll be fine. You're always fine. I'm terrified every single time. I know. That's part of why it works. You're real in a world of people performing. A pause. I should go. I have 3 more meetings before I can leave, but Adrian? Yeah? Thank you for calling me. I know you didn't have to. I wanted to. After they hung up, Adrian sat in his quiet apartment and tried to remember when exactly things had shifted. When Evelyn had stopped being his employer and started being someone he genuinely cared about. When the arrangement had stopped feeling like a transaction and started feeling like the best part of his day. The answer was probably that first dinner when she'd admitted to being lonely and he'd seen past the Ice Queen facade. Or maybe the fundraiser, when she'd made sure Lily was happy before worrying about business. Or every moment in between when she'd done something thoughtful that had nothing to do with their contract. His phone buzzed with a text from Lily, sent from Mrs. Chen's number since she didn't have her own phone yet. Dad, when is Evelyn coming over again? I finished her bracelet. Adrian stared at the message, guilt and warmth mixing uncomfortably. Lily had made a friendship bracelet for Evelyn, was asking when she'd visit, had started talking about her like she was a permanent fixture instead of a temporary arrangement. He should have been more careful, should have maintained better boundaries, should have remembered that in 4 more weeks this would all end and Lily would have to understand why the woman she'd grown attached to suddenly disappeared. But he texted back, "I'll ask her." Because he was selfish, because he wanted Evelyn to come over, because some part of him was already pretending this was real, even though he knew better. The museum gala was black tie formal in a way that made the Arts Council fundraiser look casual. Adrian had studied the guest list and nearly had a panic attack. Senators, Fortune 500 CEOs, celebrities whose movies he'd actually watched. This wasn't just proving to Hartwell that Evelyn could maintain a relationship. This was introducing that relationship to everyone who mattered in the city. Marcus picked him up at 6. Lily was spending the night with Mrs. Chen, armed with her new bracelet and strict instructions to text if she felt tired. "You look handsome, Dad," she'd said, studying him in his new tuxedo. "Very fancy penguin." Still with the penguin thing? It's a compliment. Penguins are elegant. He'd kissed the top of her head and tried not to think about how much he was lying to her. About how eventually he'd have to explain that Evelyn wasn't actually his girlfriend, that their whole relationship had been business, that nothing she'd seen was real. Evelyn was waiting in the museum's private entrance, and Adrian's breath caught. She wore something long and silver that moved like water, her hair down in waves, diamonds at her throat that probably cost more than his apartment building. "Hi," she said, and there was something vulnerable in her expression. Something that made Adrian want to close the distance between them and kiss her right there in front of the security guards and museum staff. He didn't. Obviously. That wasn't part of the arrangement. "Hi yourself. How was Chicago?" "Productive. Closed the Northwestern deal. Made the board very happy." She adjusted his bow tie. It was becoming their ritual. "Ready to charm 100 strangers?" "Absolutely not." "Perfect. Neither am I." She slipped her hand into his, and Adrian felt that now familiar warmth. "Let's pretend we are anyway." The gala was everything Adrian had feared and somehow worse. The museum had been transformed into something out of a movie, with ice sculptures and champagne fountains and waiters who circulated with food Adrian couldn't pronounce. Everyone was beautiful, wealthy, confident. Everyone belonged except him. But Evelyn stayed close, introducing him with genuine warmth, including him in conversations, touching his arm or his back in small gestures that made him feel anchored. And when James and Catherine Hartwell appeared, she didn't change, didn't become more performative or less natural. "Adrian, good to see you again." Hartwell shook his hand firmly. "Evelyn tells me your daughter's doing better." Adrian shot Evelyn a surprised look. She shrugged slightly. "Much better, thank you. The new treatment is showing real promise." "That's wonderful. Catherine and I know how hard that journey can be. Our grandson went through leukemia treatment 2 years ago. He's in remission now, but those months were—" Hartwell's voice roughened. "Well, you understand." "I do." Adrian felt his chest tighten with unexpected kinship. "I'm glad your grandson recovered. And I hope Lily does the same. You should bring her by the estate sometime. Our grandson is 10. He'd probably enjoy meeting another kid who gets it." Catherine touched Adrian's arm gently. "James is right, and I'd love to meet Lily. Evelyn's told us so much about her." After the Hartwells moved on, Adrian turned to Evelyn. "You told them about Lily's treatment?" Catherine asked how things were going. "I said your daughter was responding well to therapy. Was that wrong?" "No, I just didn't expect you to share personal details." "They're not business contacts anymore, Adrian. They're becoming friends. Friends talk about things that matter." She met his eyes. "Lily matters." Before Adrian could respond, the museum director announced dinner. They were seated at Hartwell's table, along with the museum board president and a tech billionaire whose name Adrian recognized from news headlines. Dinner conversation ranged from art acquisitions to city politics to technology trends Adrian barely followed. But he found himself contributing more than he expected, offering perspectives from his construction background that the tech billionaire found surprisingly interesting. "You know, Cole, you should consult on my new headquarters project." The billionaire, Marcus Chen, no relation to Mrs. Chen, said over dessert. We're having issues with the design build team. Someone with your practical experience might see solutions they're missing. Adrian nearly laughed. I appreciate the offer, but I'm not really in that space anymore. Why not? Good project managers are hard to find. I'd pay well. Marcus, Evelyn cut in smoothly, Adrian's focusing on other priorities right now, but I'll keep you in mind if his situation changes. After dinner, there was dancing. Adrian had gotten better at it over the past 2 weeks. Evelyn had insisted on practice sessions at her penthouse, which had been awkward and wonderful and far too intimate for something supposedly professional. Now, moving with her across the museum floor, under the soft lights, Adrian let himself stop thinking about the performance. Let himself just be here, with her, enjoying this moment regardless of what it meant or didn't mean. You're different tonight, Evelyn murmured. Different how? Less tense. More present. She studied his face. What changed? Maybe I'm finally good at pretending. Or maybe you stopped pretending. The words hung between them, dangerous and honest. Adrian's hand tightened on her waist. Evelyn, I know, we shouldn't talk about this, not here. But she didn't pull away. After the gala, can we talk? Really talk. About what? About the fact that this stopped being fake somewhere along the way. At least for me, Adrian's heart stuttered. That's the champagne talking. I haven't had any champagne. I wanted to be clear-headed tonight. Wanted to be sure. Her eyes searched his. Are you going to tell me you haven't felt it too? The shift? He should lie. Should protect them both from whatever this was becoming. Should remember that in 3.5 weeks, the arrangement ended and they went their separate ways. Instead, he said, I felt it. Relief and fear crossed her face in equal measure. Okay. So what do we do about it? I don't know. Neither do I. She laughed shakily. This wasn't supposed to happen. This wasn't part of the plan. Since when do you do things that aren't planned? Since I met someone who made me want to. The song ended. They stood there, still holding each other, while couples moved around them and the museum lights cast everything in soft gold. Come home with me tonight, Evelyn said quietly, just to talk. I need to say things I can't say here. Adrian knew it was a terrible idea. Knew crossing that line would complicate everything, but he nodded anyway, because he needed to hear what she wanted to say, needed to tell her truths he'd been holding back. They made their excuses to Hartwell, early morning, Lily's treatment schedule, polite lies that felt wrong in their mouths. Marcus drove them to Evelyn's building in silence, and the elevator ride to her penthouse was charged with things unsaid. Inside, Evelyn kicked off her heels and poured them both whiskey from that crystal decanter. Adrian loosened his bow tie and tried to prepare himself for whatever conversation they were about to have. I investigated you, Evelyn said abruptly, settling on the couch. Before we met, I knew about your wife, about Lily, about the failed business and the medical bills. I knew everything. I figured that out. No, you figured out I researched you after our ride, but I knew before. I arranged the ride, Adrian. I needed a driver who fit a specific profile, and you were perfect, so I made sure you got the pickup request. The room tilted. What? The whole thing was orchestrated. Our meeting wasn't chance. I planned it. She met his eyes, unflinching. I needed someone authentic, someone with a compelling backstory, someone desperate enough to agree but honest enough to make it believable. You checked every box. Adrian stood, needing distance. So this was all, what? Market research? Finding the perfect prop for your merger? Yes. At first, Evelyn's voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly on the glass. At first, it was entirely calculated. I saw an opportunity and I took it, the way I always do. I didn't think about what it meant for you, didn't care that I was manipulating your circumstances. I just saw a problem and a solution and I acted. That's sick. I know. She set down the whiskey. I know, and I felt sick about it for weeks. Because somewhere between planning this arrangement and actually living it, I stopped seeing you as a strategic asset. I started seeing you as someone I cared about, someone I... She stopped, swallowed hard. Someone I couldn't bear to hurt. You're already hurting me. You lied about how we met. You manipulated my entire situation. I didn't make Lily sick. I didn't create your financial problems. Those existed before I came along. All I did was offer you a way out. A way out that benefited you. Yes, I won't apologize for that part. Business is about mutually beneficial arrangements. What I will apologize for is not being honest from the start, for letting you think our meeting was coincidence, for, her voice cracked slightly, for starting to care about you and not knowing how to stop. Adrian paced to the windows, looking out at the city, his city, suddenly feeling foreign and strange. Everything he'd thought about the past 3 weeks was a lie. Everything except what he'd felt, what he'd started to believe might be real. When were you going to tell me? He asked, without turning around. I don't know. Maybe never. Maybe tonight. I keep going back and forth. She moved to stand beside him, not touching, but close. I know I should have told you from the beginning. I know this makes everything we've done suspect. But Adrian, whatever else was calculated, what I feel now is real. That's not part of the plan. That was never supposed to happen. He finally looked at her. She'd been crying. He could see the tracks of mascara she'd tried to wipe away. Evelyn Drake, who never showed weakness, who controlled every variable, was standing there falling apart. What do you feel? He asked. Terrified. Hopeful. Guilty. She laughed without humor. I feel like I found something I didn't know I was looking for, and I'm probably going to destroy it, because I don't know how to do this. How to be with someone without controlling every aspect. How to trust that what we have could exist without contracts and arrangements. Do we have something, or is that part of the performance too? I don't know. It was the most honest thing she'd said. I don't know what's real anymore. When I'm with you, it feels real. When I'm alone, I tell myself I'm just confused, that I'm mistaking good acting for genuine connection. But then you call me to share Lily's good news, or you look at me like you're looking at me right now, and I think maybe it is real. Maybe both things can be true. Adrian wanted to walk out, wanted to call Richard Huang and terminate the contract and go back to his simple, hard, honest life, where nobody manipulated him and everything was exactly what it seemed. But he didn't move. Lily made you a friendship bracelet, he said instead. She asked when you're coming over again. She talks about you like you're part of our life now. What happens in 3 weeks when this ends? When you've gotten your merger and I've gotten my payout and we go back to pretending we never knew each other? What do I tell my daughter about the woman she's gotten attached to? Evelyn flinched. I didn't think about that. You didn't think about a lot of things. You just saw a problem and a solution and you acted. But we're people, Evelyn, not chess pieces, not strategic assets, and I can't, his voice broke. I can't keep pretending this is okay. So what do you want? You want me to release you from the contract? I will, right now. The medical trust stays, the stipend payments stop, you walk away and never have to see me again. Is that what you want? I don't know what I want. It was the truth. I want to rewind 3 weeks and make a different choice. I want to have never met you. And I also want... He stopped, frustrated. I also want whatever this is to be real. I want you to be the person you are when we're alone, not the calculating CEO who orchestrated our meeting. But I don't know if that person exists or if she's just another performance. She exists, Evelyn said quietly. She's terrified and confused and doing everything wrong, but she exists. You make her exist, Adrian. Before you, I forgot she was there. They stood in the silence of the penthouse, the city sprawling below them, the weight of 3 weeks of lies and truth and something in between pressing down. I need time, Adrian finally said. I need to think about all this without you standing there looking like that. Like what? Like you actually care. It makes it harder to be angry. I do care, that's the problem. I care so much it's screwing up everything I planned. She moved to the door, opening it for him. Take all the time you need. If you want to end the arrangement, call Richard. If you want to continue as planned, show up at the charity auction Thursday. If you want something else... She stopped, swallowed. If you want something else, I'm here. Adrian walked to the door, then paused. The person you are with, Lily. Making sure she had therapy dogs, funding her treatment before I even signed, researching experimental protocols. Was that calculated too? Evelyn met his eyes. No, that was me trying to do something good in the middle of something manipulative. trying to balance the scales. Does it? No, nothing balances this. She touched his arm gently. But I tried anyway. Adrian left without responding because he didn't trust what would come out if he opened his mouth. In the elevator, he leaned against the polished wall and tried to process everything. Evelyn had orchestrated their meeting, had researched him, identified him as the perfect mark, arranged for him to pick her up that night. Everything he'd thought about their connection, the coincidence, the opportunity, the way she'd somehow shown up at exactly the right moment to save him, all of it was calculated. Except what she felt now. Maybe. If he believed her. If he believed that someone like Evelyn Drake could actually fall for someone like him without it being part of some larger strategy. His phone rang. Mrs. Chen. Adrian, Lily's asking for you. She's not feeling well. His heart stopped. What's wrong? Fever. Not too high, but she's asking for you. Should I bring her home? I'm on my way. He caught a cab faster than waiting for a rideshare and made it to Mrs. Chen's apartment in 15 minutes. Lily was curled up on the couch, looking small and pale, her friendship bracelet still on her wrist. Dad? She reached for him and Adrian gathered her up, feeling the heat of her fever through her pajamas. I've got you, baby. We're going home. Mrs. Chen looked worried. Should you take her to the hospital? I'll call Dr. Patterson, see what she says. Adrian already had his phone out, one arm still holding Lily. Thank you for calling me. Of course, she's family. Family. The word echoed as Adrian carried Lily downstairs, as he got her settled in their apartment, as he called Dr. Patterson's emergency line and described the symptoms. The doctor was calm, reassuring. Fevers were common with the immunotherapy. Nothing to panic about unless it spiked above 102. Monitor her, keep her hydrated, call back if anything changed. Adrian spent the night on the floor beside Lily's corner bedroom, checking her temperature every hour, making sure she was breathing steady. And somewhere around 3 a.m., exhausted and scared and angry at the universe, he finally let himself cry. Not just about Lily's fever, about everything. About Evelyn's manipulation, about his own stupidity in starting to believe their arrangement might be something more. About how much easier life had been when he'd just been a driver, barely scraping by, before billionaire CEOs and charity galas and feelings he had no business having. His phone buzzed with a text. Evelyn. I can't sleep. Keep thinking about your face when you left. I'm sorry, Adrian, for all of it. You deserved better than what I did. He should ignore it. Should focus on Lily. Should protect himself from whatever game Evelyn was or wasn't playing. Instead, he typed, Lily has a fever. Dr. Patterson says it's normal, but I'm scared. The response came immediately. Do you need me to come over? I can be there in 20 minutes. No, we're okay. Just wanted to tell someone. Thank you for telling me. I know you didn't have to. Adrian stared at the message for a long time. Then, I keep wanting to hate you. Would be easier. I know. I'm sorry I can't make it easier. Are you really sorry, or is that part of the strategy too? A long pause. Then, I don't know anymore. I've lied about so many things I can't tell what's real, but I think I'm sorry. I think I regret hurting you. I think I want to be better than the person who orchestrated all this. Thinking and being are different things. Teach me how to be it then, because I clearly don't know. Adrian set his phone down and looked at Lily, sleeping fitfully, her small chest rising and falling. She'd made a bracelet for Evelyn, had asked when she'd visit, had started building her own relationship with a woman who might disappear in 3 weeks. That was the real crime. Not manipulating Adrian. He was an adult who'd signed contracts and made choices. But giving Lily hope, giving her someone else to care about, then potentially vanishing, that was unforgivable. Unless Evelyn didn't vanish. Unless what she felt was real enough to outlast the arrangement. Unless Adrian could forgive the manipulation and see the scared, lonely woman underneath who was trying to figure out how to connect without controlling. By morning, Lily's fever had broken. She woke up tired but improved, asking for toast and her talking dog show. Adrian called Dr. Patterson to report the overnight developments, got reassurance that everything was progressing normally, then made Lily breakfast and tried to figure out what the hell he was doing. His phone rang. Not Evelyn this time, James Hartwell. Adrian, hope I'm not calling too early. Catherine and I were discussing the gala last night, and we wanted you to know we're signing the merger papers tomorrow. Evelyn's proven herself, and you're a big part of that. She's clearly in a better place with you in her life. Adrian's stomach dropped. That's great. Congratulations. We'd like to invite you both to dinner after the signing. Celebrate properly. Catherine's already planning the menu. Hartwell paused. You know, when I first met Evelyn, I thought she was brilliant but cold, incapable of real connection. You've shown me I was wrong. She's different with you, more human. That's worth more than any business deal. After he hung up, Adrian sat at his kitchen table and stared at nothing. The merger was happening. Hartwell was signing. The entire purpose of their arrangement, convincing him Evelyn could maintain personal relationships, had succeeded, which meant in 3 weeks their contract ended and they went their separate ways. Unless they chose something else. Unless Evelyn meant what she'd said about caring. Unless Adrian could get past the manipulation and see what might be real underneath. His phone buzzed. Evelyn again. Hartwell called me. The merger is happening. We did it. Adrian typed back. Congratulations, you got what you wanted. Did I? He stared at those 2 words for a long time. Then, before he could second-guess himself, Thursday, the charity auction. I'll be there. Does that mean you're staying in the arrangement? It means I'm showing up Thursday. We'll see about the rest. The auction was at the Grandview Hotel again, in a different ballroom that somehow looked identical to the first one. Adrian wore his first tuxedo. Vanessa had texted that it was appropriate for this event, and tried to prepare himself to see Evelyn again. She was waiting in the lobby, wearing red this time, her hair pulled back severely. She looked like the Ice Queen everyone described, and Adrian wondered if that was intentional. If she was armoring herself against him the way she armored herself against everyone. Hi, she said quietly. Hi. They stood there awkwardly, the ease of the past weeks shattered by honesty. Finally, Evelyn gestured toward the ballroom. We should go in. People are watching. Right, the performance. She flinched. Adrian, I'm here, aren't I? Like I said I would be, so let's do this. The auction was torture. They sat together, bid on things neither wanted, smiled for cameras. Evelyn's hand found his under the table at one point, and Adrian didn't pull away, but he didn't squeeze back either. He just let her hold on, neither accepting nor rejecting the gesture. Hartwell noticed. Of course he did. Everything all right with you two? He asked during the cocktail hour. Fine, Evelyn said smoothly. Just a long week. Relationships take work, even the good ones, especially the good ones. Hartwell clapped Adrian's shoulder. Don't take the easy ones for granted. They're rare. After he walked away, Evelyn turned to Adrian. Can we talk? Really talk. There's a private terrace upstairs. Adrian should have said no, should have maintained distance. Instead, he followed her to an elevator, to the top floor, out onto a terrace that overlooked the entire city. I'm ending it, Evelyn said abruptly. The arrangement, after tonight, I'm going to tell Hartwell the truth. Adrian's world tilted. What? I can't do this anymore. Can't lie to you, to him, to myself. So, I'm ending it. I'll tell him Monday that we orchestrated the relationship for business reasons. That you were hired to make me look more human. He'll be furious. He'll probably pull the merger, but I can't. Her voice broke. I can't keep using you. Can't keep making Lily think I'm something I'm not. Can't keep pretending this is okay. You'll lose everything. $300 million, 18 months of work. I'll lose my integrity if I don't. She met his eyes. You were right. People aren't chess pieces. I've been treating this like a game, and the cost is too high, so I'm stopping. Adrian felt like he was falling. Just like that? You decide unilaterally to blow everything up? What else can I do? You won't trust me. Lily's getting attached to someone who's going to disappear. Hartwell thinks we're real. Every day this continues, the lies get worse. Better to end it now. Clean break. And the medical trust? Stays. All of it. That was never contingent on you completing the arrangement. She laughed bitterly. See? Even now, I'm trying to control the outcome. Make sure you're taken care of so I can feel less guilty. They stood in the cool night air, the sounds of the auction floating up from below. Adrian's mind raced, trying to process what Evelyn was saying. She was willing to lose $300 million rather than keep lying. was willing to face Hartwell's anger, the business consequences, the failure of a deal she'd spent 18 months building. That wasn't calculation. That was someone actually caring about doing the right thing, even when it cost everything. "Don't tell him," Adrian heard himself say. "What?" "Don't tell Hartwell. Not yet." He moved closer to her. "You're right that we can't keep going like this. But blowing it up doesn't fix anything either. It just makes you feel better about your guilt. Then what do you suggest?" "I suggest we finish the 3 weeks. Do what we agreed to. Get you through the merger signing, get Lily's treatment funded, complete the arrangement properly." He held her gaze. "And then, after it's done, after there's no more contract and no more obligations, we figure out if what we feel is real." "You'd do that? After everything I've done?" "I do that because despite everything you've done, I still—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "I still want to know. Want to see if the woman who researches experimental treatments and makes sure 7-year-olds have therapy dogs is real, or if I'm just seeing what I want to see." Evelyn was crying now, not bothering to hide it. "I don't deserve that kind of chance." "Probably not, but I'm offering it anyway. 3 more weeks, we see this through, and then we decide what happens next without contracts or arrangements or business deals in the way. What if I screw it up? What if I can't stop being the person who manipulates and controls? Then at least we'll know. At least Lily will have her treatment. At least Hartwell will have his merger. At least something good will come out of this mess." She reached for him, and Adrian let her rest her forehead against his shoulder, let her cry into his tuxedo, let himself hold someone who'd hurt him and might hurt him again, but who he couldn't quite walk away from. "Thank you," she whispered, "for being better than I deserve. Don't thank me yet. I'm still angry, still hurt, still not sure I can trust you." "I know. But I want to try. That counts for something." They stood there until Evelyn's tears stopped, until they could both breathe normally again, until the auction wound down and people started leaving. Then they went back inside, faces composed, playing their parts one more time. But something had shifted. Some truth had been spoken. And as they said goodnight in the lobby, Evelyn's hand lingering in his just a moment too long, Adrian thought maybe they had a shot at figuring this out. 3 more weeks, then they'd know if what they'd built on lies could survive in the light. The 3 weeks that followed were the strangest of Adrian's life, and he'd lived through his wife dying and his daughter getting cancer, so that was saying something. He and Evelyn fell into a rhythm that was half performance, half something neither of them wanted to name. They attended the final events on Evelyn's color-coded calendar, a business luncheon where Adrian charmed a venture capitalist, a gallery opening where they slow danced to jazz, a brunch at the Hartwell estate where Lily came along and Catherine spent 2 hours teaching her how to make scones. But underneath the public appearances, something was shifting. Evelyn stopped trying to control every variable. Adrian stopped assuming every gesture was calculated. They started having real conversations that had nothing to do with their arrangement, about books, about childhood memories, about the things that scared them at 3 a.m. when sleep wouldn't come. She came to his apartment for the first time on a Wednesday evening, carrying takeout from some expensive place downtown and looking completely out of place in his cramped studio. Lily had been thrilled, showing off her room corner and her stuffed elephant collection and the bracelet she'd made. "Purple and silver," Lily had explained, tying it carefully around Evelyn's wrist. "Those are your colors. Dad says you wear a lot of silver jewelry, and purple is my favorite, so I thought you'd like both." Evelyn had looked at that cheap friendship bracelet like it was made of diamonds. "It's perfect. I'll wear it every day." "Really? Even to your fancy business meetings?" "Especially to those. I need reminding that there are more important things than business." After Lily went to bed, Adrian and Evelyn had sat on his secondhand couch, eating lukewarm Chinese food and watching some documentary about penguins that Adrian had started as a joke, but Evelyn had gotten surprisingly invested in. "Your apartment is nice," she'd said, though it was obviously a lie. The place was falling apart. "No, it's not, but it's home. That makes it nice." She gestured to the photos on the walls, mostly of Lily, a few of Jenny, one of Adrian's parents before they'd passed. "You can feel the love here. My penthouse has original art worth millions, but it doesn't have this." "You could have it, if you wanted." "Could I?" She'd looked at him with those dark eyes, vulnerable and uncertain. "I don't know how to build this. I know how to build empires. I don't know how to build a home." You learn. Same way you learned everything else. She'd stayed until midnight, talking about nothing and everything. And when she'd left, she'd kissed his cheek in a way that felt nothing like performance and everything like promise. The merger signing happened on a Thursday afternoon in Hartwell's office, with lawyers and executives filling the conference room. Adrian hadn't attended. It was business, not something requiring the fake boyfriend, but Evelyn had texted him after. It's done. $300 million. 18 months of work. And all I can think about is seeing you tonight. That night was the final event. The charity gala that had been circled in red on Evelyn's calendar since the beginning. The culmination of everything they'd been building toward. Adrian picked up Lily from school himself. He'd started doing that again, cutting back on the extra driving now that money wasn't so desperately tight. She'd bounced into the car, backpack dragging, chattering about some art project involving macaroni. And guess what? I got picked to help with the school play. I'm going to paint trees for the forest scene. That's amazing, baby. Can Evelyn come watch the play? It's not for 2 months, but I want her to see what I painted. Adrian's hands tightened on the steering wheel. 2 months from now, the arrangement would be over for 6 weeks. They'd either be actually together, or they'd be strangers again, and Lily would have to understand why. We'll see, he said, hating himself for the non-answer. You always say that when you mean probably not. Too perceptive. Always too perceptive. Things are complicated, Lils. Are you and Evelyn fighting? No, not fighting, just figuring things out. Grown-ups make everything complicated. She said it with the exasperation of a 7-year-old who'd seen too much, and Adrian had to laugh despite everything. You're not wrong. That evening, getting ready for the gala, Adrian stood in front of his bathroom mirror in his tuxedo and tried to recognize himself. 4 weeks ago, he'd been a struggling driver barely keeping his head above water. Now he was someone who attended charity galas and knew which fork to use and could make small talk with senators. But underneath the expensive clothes and polished appearance, he was still just Adrian Cole. Still just a father trying to protect his daughter. Still just a man scared of caring too much for someone who might not be capable of caring back. His phone rang. Evelyn. Hey, he answered. Hey yourself, Marcus is on his way to get you. I know, I'm ready. A pause. Are you? Really? As ready as I'll ever be. Adrian studied his reflection. This is it, right? Last public event. After tonight, the arrangement is officially over. Technically, we have 2 more days, but yes, this is the big one. Another pause. I'm nervous. You? You're never nervous. I'm always nervous. I just hide it better than most people. He could hear her moving around, probably pacing her penthouse. Tonight feels different, like everything's been building to this and I'm terrified of screwing it up. You won't screw it up. You're Evelyn Drake. You don't screw things up. I screwed us up pretty badly. And we're working through it. That counts for something. Adrian sat on the edge of his bathtub, needing to be closer to her even if it was just through a phone. What are you really afraid of? Silence. Then, that after tonight, when there's no more contract and no more obligation, you'll realize you don't actually want this, that what we have only works because there's a structure around it. Do you believe that? I don't know. I've never done this without structure, without contracts and agreements and defined terms. I don't know how to just be with someone. You've been doing it for the past 3 weeks, coming over, watching documentaries about penguins, helping Lily with her homework. That's being with someone. That felt easy, too easy. I keep waiting for it to fall apart. Maybe it won't. Maybe we're both just scared because this matters more than we want to admit. Adrian heard Marcus pull up outside. I have to go. Car's here. Adrian? Yeah? Thank you for giving me this chance, for not walking away when you had every right to. Thank you for being worth staying for. After he hung up, Adrian checked on Lily one more time. She was at Mrs. Chen's for the night, already in pajamas, watching her talking dog show. You look handsome, Dad, she said, the way she always did now. Fancy penguin? The fanciest. She hugged him tight. Tell Evelyn I said hi, and that I'm making her another bracelet. This one has beads. I'll tell her. Dad? Do you love her? The question hit him like a punch. Adrian crouched down to Lily's level, looking into those two wise eyes. Why do you ask? Because you look at her the way you used to look at Mom, like she's the best thing ever, like you don't want to look away. Adrian's throat tightened. Would that be okay? If I did love her? Lily considered it seriously. Mom would want you to be happy, and Evelyn makes you smile more. So yeah, it would be okay. She paused. Plus she's nice, and she promised to come to my school play, so she has to stick around at least 2 more months. When did she promise that? Last time she came over. She said she wouldn't miss it for anything. Lily grinned. So even if you mess up, I think she's staying. Adrian kissed the top of her head, overwhelmed by his daughter's capacity for acceptance and hope. Get some sleep, baby. I'll see you tomorrow. The gala was at the Museum of Natural History, transformed into something out of a fairy tale. String lights wrapped around the columns, flowers spilling from every surface, tables draped in midnight blue scattered throughout the dinosaur exhibit. It was beautiful and surreal and packed with everyone who mattered in the city's social hierarchy. Evelyn was waiting at the entrance in a dress that took Adrian's breath away, midnight blue to match the tables, cut simply but perfectly, her hair up in a way that left her shoulders bare. She wore the friendship bracelet Lily had made, purple and silver bright against her wrist. You wore it, Adrian said. I told Lily I would. I don't break promises to 7-year-olds. She took his arm, and they walked into the museum together. Ready for one last performance? Is that what this is? She looked at him, and something in her expression shifted. No, I don't think it is anymore. The evening unfolded with practiced ease. They'd done this enough times now that it felt natural. The mingling, the small talk, the way Evelyn's hand found his in crowds. They talked to donors and board members, posed for photos with Hartwell and Catherine, bid absurd amounts on charity auction items. But underneath it all, Adrian felt the weight of endings. This was the last time they'd do this as an arrangement. After tonight, they'd have to figure out what they were to each other without contracts defining the terms. During dinner, James Hartwell stood to make a speech thanking the donors and the museum board. Then, unexpectedly, he gestured to Evelyn. I also want to acknowledge someone who's been instrumental in making tonight possible. Evelyn Drake not only underwrote a significant portion of this event, but she's also shown me something important over the past few weeks. She's shown me that success in business doesn't mean sacrificing personal connection, that you can build an empire and still build a life. Evelyn, would you say a few words? Evelyn stood gracefully, but Adrian saw the tension in her shoulders. She hadn't prepared a speech. This wasn't on the agenda. But she moved to the microphone anyway, composure intact. Thank you, James. I'm honored to be part of tonight's celebration. She paused, and her gaze found Adrian in the crowd. A few months ago, I would have told you that business was everything, that success was measured in deals closed and profits earned, that personal relationships were secondary to professional achievement. Adrian's heart started to pound. But someone recently reminded me that people aren't chess pieces, that treating life like a series of strategic moves means missing out on everything that actually matters. She was still looking at Adrian. I've spent the past month learning what it means to connect with someone without controlling every variable, learning that vulnerability isn't weakness, learning that sometimes the best things in life are the ones you can't plan or orchestrate or manipulate into existence. The room was silent. Hartwell was smiling. Catherine had tears in her eyes. So thank you, all of you, for being part of tonight, for supporting the arts, for building community, for reminding me that there's more to life than the next merger. Evelyn's voice softened. And thank you to the person who showed me what I was missing. You know who you are. She sat down to applause, and Adrian couldn't move, couldn't breathe, because that hadn't been a performance. That had been Evelyn Drake, terrified of vulnerability, standing in front of 200 people and admitting she'd been wrong, admitting she'd changed, admitting she cared. Under the table, her hand found his and squeezed. He squeezed back. After dinner, they escaped to the planetarium, a quiet dome away from the crowds where projected stars swirled overhead in constellations Adrian didn't recognize. That speech, he said. I know. I should have cleared it with you first. Evelyn leaned against the railing, looking up at the artificial sky. I needed to say it. Needed people to know I'm not the same person I was 2 months ago. Hartwell knows the relationship is real now. You didn't have to do that. I didn't do it for Hartwell. I did it for you and for me. Because I'm tired of lying. She turned to face him. I'm tired of pretending this is just an arrangement, tired of treating what we have like it's something I orchestrated instead of something that happened despite my best efforts to control everything. Adrian moved closer. What are you saying? I'm saying the contract ends in 2 days, and I don't want it to. I'm saying I've been falling for you since the museum gala when you called me on my patterns. I'm saying I'm terrified and confused, and I have no idea how to do this without a strategic plan, but I want to try. She met his eyes. I'm saying I love you, Adrian Cole. And I know that's not in the agreement, and I know it complicates everything, but I can't not say it anymore. The planetarium spun around them, stars wheeling overhead, and Adrian felt like he was standing at the edge of something vast and terrifying, and exactly what he'd been wanting without letting himself want it. I love you too, he said. And I hate that I love you, because it would be so much easier if I didn't. Easier to walk away, easier to protect Lily, easier to go back to my simple life. But I can't. Because you make me want things I thought I'd given up on. You make me want a future that's more than just survival. Evelyn's eyes were shining. So what do? We cancel the contract, right now, tonight. We call Richard and tell him the arrangement is over, the final payment is void, we're done with the professional relationship. Adrian took her hands. And then we start over. No agreements, no obligations. Just two people figuring out if what they feel is strong enough to build something real. What about the medical trust? Stays. Because Lily's treatment isn't contingent on us. That was always separate. He paused. Unless you want to tie it to us. Use it as leverage to keep me around. Don't joke about that. Who's joking? You've manipulated me before. How do I know this isn't more of the same? Because I'm choosing to give up control. I'm choosing to trust that you'll stay without contracts forcing you to. I'm choosing to believe that what we have is worth more than any legal agreement. Evelyn's voice shook slightly. I'm choosing you, Adrian. No conditions, no strategic planning, just choosing you and hoping you choose me back. Adrian kissed her. Right there in the planetarium under the projected stars, with the sounds of the gala filtering in from distant rooms, he kissed her like he'd been wanting to for weeks. And it was nothing like the careful public touches they'd shared before. It was honest and messy and exactly right. When they broke apart, Evelyn was crying and laughing at the same time. I can't believe I just did that, she said. Which part? The speech? Or the kissing? All of it. Standing up there admitting I was wrong, telling you I love you, kissing you in a public space where anyone could walk in. The old me would never... She stopped, shook her head. The old me was an idiot. The old you built an empire. The old me was lonely in a penthouse surrounded by expensive things that didn't matter. The new me wants a life, wants someone to come home to, wants to help Lily paint trees for her school play and watch documentaries about penguins, and maybe, eventually, figure out what an actual relationship looks like. It looks like this. Messy and complicated and terrifying and worth it. They stayed in the planetarium until someone from the museum staff found them and politely suggested they return to the gala. By then, Adrian's bow tie was crooked and Evelyn's carefully styled hair had come partially loose, and they both looked thoroughly kissed. They didn't care. The rest of the gala passed in a blur. They danced, they talked to people who probably noticed something had shifted, they made their excuses early, and left together. Marcus drove them to Evelyn's building, and for the first time, Adrian followed her up to the penthouse without hesitation. Stay, Evelyn said simply. Just stay. So he did. They sat on her expensive couch, drinking whiskey and talking until dawn, figuring out what this new relationship looked like. How to tell Lily, how to navigate the difference in their financial situations. How to build something real out of what had started as fiction. I want to meet your family, Evelyn said, around 3 a.m. You mentioned a brother in Portland. I should know them if we're doing this for real. I want you to be part of Lily's treatment team, not just funding it, but there for the appointments, the hard days, the victories. I want to learn how to be with someone without controlling everything. You have to be patient with me. I'm going to screw up a lot. I want to stop feeling like I'm not good enough for your world. That's going to take time. They traded wants and fears until the sky lightened, until Adrian's phone started buzzing with texts from Mrs. Chen asking if he was all right, until exhaustion finally pulled them both toward sleep. Adrian woke up on Evelyn's couch, covered with a blanket he didn't remember getting, with sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Evelyn was in the kitchen making coffee, wearing yoga pants and a t-shirt that made her look nothing like the Ice Queen CEO everyone feared. "Morning," she said, and she was smiling. "Morning." Adrian sat up, taking in the penthouse in daylight. "We really did this, canceled the arrangement, said we loved each other, stayed up all night talking." "We really did." She brought him coffee, curling up beside him. "Having regrets?" "Absolutely terrified, but no regrets." "Good, because I'm terrified too, and it helps knowing I'm not alone in it." They spent the morning figuring out logistics. Adrian called Richard to formally end the contract, and the lawyer had sounded amused rather than surprised. Evelyn called her assistant to clear her afternoon. She wanted time to tell Catherine Hartwell the truth before the woman heard it elsewhere. "You're telling Catherine?" Adrian asked. "She deserves honesty, and I think she'll understand." Evelyn was nervous, fidgeting with Lily's bracelet. "The merger is signed. Hartwell can't back out now, but I want them to know the relationship is real going forward, even if it started as business." "What if they're angry?" "Then they're angry. I'd rather lose their friendship than keep lying to them." Catherine had invited them to lunch at the estate, and Adrian went along for moral support. The older woman greeted them warmly, leading them to a sunroom overlooking gardens that probably required a full-time staff. "You both look different," Catherine observed, pouring tea. "Lighter, somehow." Evelyn took a breath. "Catherine, I need to tell you something about how Adrian and I met." She laid it all out, the orchestrated meeting, the contract, the arrangement designed to convince James she was capable of personal relationships. Catherine listened without interrupting, her expression unreadable. When Evelyn finished, the silence stretched uncomfortably. Finally, Catherine laughed. "Oh, honey, I know." Evelyn went pale. "What?" "James and I figured it out after the second event. You're brilliant at business, but you're not a natural actor. We saw the calculation in those first few appearances." Catherine sipped her tea calmly. "But we also saw it change. Saw you stop performing and start actually caring. That's what convinced James to sign. Not the act, the fact that you let it become real." Adrian found his voice. "You knew the whole time?" "Not the whole time, but yes, eventually." Catherine smiled at them. "Love is a terrible thing to fake, and whatever you two started with, it's not fake anymore. Anyone can see that." Evelyn looked like she might cry. "You're not angry?" "Why would I be angry? You went to great lengths to prove you could maintain a relationship, and in the process you actually fell in love. That's rather romantic if you ask me." Catherine set down her teacup. "James will probably give you a hard time about the deception, but he'll also respect that you told the truth when you didn't have to. That takes courage." They left the estate an hour later, both stunned and relieved and slightly giddy with the absurdity of it all. "She knew," Evelyn kept saying. "They knew, and they signed anyway. Apparently we're terrible liars. Or maybe what we feel is just that obvious." They picked up Lily together from Mrs. Chen's, and the three of them went to the park. Something simple and normal that felt extraordinary in its ordinariness. Lily played on the swings while Adrian and Evelyn sat on a bench, watching. "I need to tell her soon," Adrian said, "about the arrangement ending, about us being real now." "What will you say?" "The truth. That I was working for you, but then I fell in love with you for real. That you're not going anywhere unless she wants you to." He glanced at Evelyn. "That is what you want, right? To stick around? Even when it's hard and messy and my apartment is falling apart and we come from completely different worlds?" "Especially then." Evelyn's hand found his. "I don't want easy, Adrian. I want real. And this is the most real thing I've ever felt." Lily ran over, breathless and happy. "Dad, Evelyn, watch this." She proceeded to demonstrate some elaborate maneuver on the monkey bars that made Adrian's heart stop with parental terror. "Be careful, baby." "I'm fine." "Evelyn, did you see?" "I saw. That was amazing." Evelyn was smiling in a way Adrian had never seen. Genuine, unguarded, full of warmth. "You're very brave." "I learned from Dad. He's the bravest person I know." Lily scrambled down and threw herself at Adrian for a hug. Can we get ice cream? Sure. What flavor? Strawberry, obviously. Lily grabbed Evelyn's hand. You have to come too. And tell me about your work. Do you have an office? Is it fancy? Do you have a secretary like on TV? As they walked to the ice cream shop, Lily chattering between them, Adrian felt something settle in his chest. This was what he'd been missing. Not just financial stability or access to better medical care, though those mattered, but this feeling of family, of not being alone in the struggle, of having someone to share the good moments and the hard ones. At the ice cream shop, while Lily was distracted by the array of flavors, Evelyn leaned close to Adrian. I could get used to this. The parks and ice cream and normal life things. Yeah? Yeah. Though I have to warn you, I'm probably going to be terrible at it for a while. I'll try to overplan playdates and optimize Lily's schedule, and generally be insufferable about things that should be spontaneous. And I'll remind you to relax, to trust that things can work without being controlled. We'll figure it out together. Together. I like that word. Over the following weeks, they built something new out of the wreckage of their arrangement. Evelyn started coming to Lily's treatments, learning the names of the nurses and bringing coffee for Adrian during the long waits. Adrian started spending evenings at her penthouse, teaching her how to cook basic meals that didn't come from expensive restaurants. Lily started calling Evelyn unprompted, just to chat about her day. It wasn't perfect. Evelyn still tried to control things, had to be gently reminded that not everything needed a strategic plan. Adrian still struggled with feeling out of place in her world. Had to be reminded that he belonged because she wanted him there, not because he fit some preconceived notion of who belonged. But they were learning, and more importantly, they were choosing each other every day without contracts forcing them to. 2 months later, on the night of Lily's school play, they sat in the elementary school auditorium on uncomfortable folding chairs, surrounded by other parents with their phones out recording. I can't believe you actually came, Adrian murmured. I promised. I don't break promises to Lily. Evelyn squeezed his hand. Plus, I wanted to see her trees. She's very proud of them. The play was charmingly chaotic. Kids forgetting lines, scenery falling over, someone's crown falling off mid-scene. But Lily's trees were beautiful, and when she spotted them in the audience during her bow, her face lit up with pure joy. After, they took her out for celebratory ice cream, strawberry, obviously, and Lily talked nonstop about the performance. Did you see when Tommy forgot his line, and Mrs. Martinez had to whisper it to him? That was so funny. She was bouncing in her seat, higher energy than she'd had in months. The immunotherapy was working. Her most recent scans had shown significant improvement. You did great, baby, Adrian said, and your trees were the best part. Evelyn, you're coming to the next play too, right? We're doing one in spring. Evelyn glanced at Adrian, something warm and certain in her eyes. Definitely. Wouldn't miss it. Later, after they dropped Lily home and were sitting in Adrian's apartment, Evelyn said quietly, I've been thinking. About? About how your lease is up in 2 months. About how this apartment is falling apart and the landlord never fixes anything. About how you're spending more time at my place anyway. She was nervous, playing with the friendship bracelet she never took off. Move in with me, you and Lily. Officially. Adrian's heart stuttered. That's a big step. I know, and if it's too soon we can wait, but I want you there. Want to wake up with you every morning. Want Lily to have her own room that's actually a room, not a partitioned corner. Want us to be a family for real. She met his eyes. What do you think? I think you're asking a single father with a sick kid and almost no money to move into a multi-million-dollar penthouse with a woman who owns half the city's real estate. I think it's crazy and complicated, and everyone will have opinions about the power dynamic. And I think I want it anyway. Want Lily to have space to grow. Want to wake up with you. Want to build this life we're trying to create without one of us always being somewhere else. Adrian pulled her close. Yes, we'll move in, but we're contributing. I'm not going to be some kept man. You can pay rent if it makes you feel better. I will absolutely pay rent. Fine. $1 a month. That's my final offer. You're impossible. You love me anyway. Unfortunately, I do. They moved in 6 weeks later, and it was chaos. Lily claimed the second bedroom immediately, decorating it with her stuffed animals and star stickers and friendship bracelet supplies. Adrian tried to contribute to household expenses, and Evelyn tried to let him without making him feel inadequate. They fought about stupid things like whose turn it was to do dishes and whether Lily needed a bedtime on weekends. They figured out how to be together in close quarters, how to navigate each other's habits and quirks. It was messy and imperfect, and exactly what both of them needed. 6 months after moving in, Adrian woke up to Lily bouncing on the bed at 6 a.m. "Dad! Dad, wake up! Dr. Patterson called." His heart stopped. "Is everything okay?" "More than okay. She said my latest scans are completely clear. She said I'm in remission." Adrian sat up so fast he nearly fell out of bed. "What? Remission? That means the cancer is gone, right? That means I'm getting better?" Evelyn appeared in the doorway, already on her phone, probably calling Dr. Patterson to confirm. But she was smiling, tears streaming down her face, and Adrian knew it was true. Lily was going to be okay. They spent that day celebrating, impromptu party with Mrs. Chen, video call with Adrian's brother in Portland, takeout from Lily's favorite restaurant. Friends they'd made through the various charity events stopped by with congratulations. Catherine Hartwell sent flowers. Even Marcus the driver called to share his happiness. That night, after Lily finally crashed from exhaustion and excitement, Adrian and Evelyn sat on their balcony overlooking the city. "We did it," Adrian said quietly. "She's going to be okay." She did it. She fought like hell and won. Evelyn leaned against him. "But yes, we helped. The treatment, the reduced stress, the stability, it all helped. None of it would have happened without you, without that crazy arrangement, without you agreeing to it, without you taking a chance on someone who manipulated you and then fell for you anyway." She turned to look at him. "Thank you for giving me this, for teaching me what actually matters. Thank you for saving my daughter's life, for giving me a future I'd stopped believing in, for being brave enough to admit you were wrong and change course." Adrian kissed her softly. "For choosing me when you could have chosen anything. Always you. From that first real conversation at dinner when you called me on my loneliness, you've always been it for me, Adrian Cole." A year after the arrangement ended, they were married in a small ceremony at the Hartwell Estate Gardens. Lily was the flower girl, wearing purple and carrying a bouquet she'd insisted on making herself. Catherine Hartwell cried through the entire ceremony. James made a speech about love growing in unexpected places. Mrs. Chen brought her famous dumplings. It was simple and perfect, and nothing like the elaborate charity galas where they'd first learned to pretend they cared about each other, because they didn't have to pretend anymore. Adrian Cole, former struggling driver and current consultant for Evelyn's construction division, stood under the garden arbor and married the woman who'd orchestrated their meeting, manipulated his circumstances, and then fallen in love with him against all her careful planning. Evelyn Drake, still CEO, still brilliant, still occasionally trying to control variables she should let be, married the man who taught her that vulnerability wasn't weakness and that some of the best things in life were the ones you couldn't plan. And Lily, healthy and happy and about to turn 8, watched her father marry someone who'd become as important to her as family and knew that sometimes the best things came from the strangest beginnings. Years later, when Lily would ask about how they met, Adrian and Evelyn would exchange a look. "It's complicated," Adrian would say. "It started as business," Evelyn would add. "But it became real," they'd finish together. And Lily, older and wiser, would roll her eyes at her parents and their inside jokes, but she'd smile too, because she'd seen it. Seen them build something genuine out of something calculated. Seen them choose each other every day, even when it was hard. Seen that love, real love, could grow in the strangest soil and become something beautiful. The arrangement had ended years ago. The contract was void, the obligations fulfilled, the transaction complete. But what they'd built together, that imperfect, messy, real family, that was forever. And it was worth more than any merger, any empire, any carefully calculated plan. It was worth everything.